welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We've got the usual crew here with us today. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
What a week.
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
and Chao Min Wu.
How's it going?
As always, whenever we are recording the podcast on after a Nintendo Direct week, we have a lot to talk about because Nintendo Directs are the bane of our existence, but also drive a lot of things that we are interested in and excited about talking about. So, of course, we're going to be talking about the releases as we planned on. We have the first Berserker Khazan. We have a review up for what was it Atomfall? I was blanking on it. Atomfall as well. We'll talk briefly about that. But of course, yes, Nintendo Direct. A few things we expected, a few things we didn't. We also had some surprising announcements outside of the Nintendo Direct that we'll definitely want to make sure we hit. So this will be a pretty even-keeled video in terms of news and in terms of game talk. So we'll just go through there. I'm kind of bearing the lead a bit on this. One of the games we're going to be talking about here is, of course, SaGa Frontier 2. It was shadow dropped in the Nintendo Direct, so we'll go into the announcement there, of course, what that means, and our time with that game, either the remaster or the original version. But before any of that, we are going to start out with the biggest release of the week, and that is the first Berserker Khazan. So we talked about this very briefly when the demo launched in January. I think I played it a few weeks after it launched. The demo, of course, kind of your progress carries over into the main game. The main game released just in this last week, and covering it for us has been Josh. So Josh will kick things off talking about Khazan, and then we'll roll forward from there. So with no further ado, Josh.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I spent about 35-ish hours playing through this game fully. It's the newest action RPG from developer Neopol and publisher Nexon.
Can I ask you a rhetorical question?
Yes.
I kind of know the answer to this, but I have a feeling that listeners may not. Like, what
Yes.
is this game? And I heard it has something to do with like DNF Duel or something.
Yeah, so I was just about to say that, but the
I heard
good
it has Ben
question.
Starr. That's all I know.
I led this off in the review because some people may not know this, but kind of setting the stage, the premise for this game. Neopol and Nexon, if you were like in your teens, like in the fucking mid-aughts to forgot exactly when Dungeon and Fighter, or known as Dungeon Fighter Online in the West, got released in the West and people got into it. But essentially, this game comes from that IP of it's called Dungeon and Fighter overseas, and then it was localized as Dungeon Fighter Online in the West. And this was a pretty huge free to play MMO, and it was kind of it wasn't the first, but it was one of those earliest ones here, like along the lines of like Maple Story, along the lines of a lot of Korean MMOs, basically Atlantica Online, and such. And Dungeon Fighter Online was pretty unique in this space because it was like a side scroller beat 'em up anime aesthetics, very flashy. You can party up with your friends and go through like dungeon runs in this side scroller beat 'em up format. And you had like all these sort of character classes, like you had the gunslinger, the warrior, the mage, and then they had like their evolved classes. You can go like sorceress, and one of them was berserker. Um, Master, whatever. There was like dozens of them, and they only added more over time. So the first Berserker Khazan is related to that game in the sense that it's a huge distant prequel to it that tells the origins of this character named Khazan. And when you go into like ascend into the Berserker class in Dungeon and Fighter, like the flavor text, the background of this Berserker class in that game is like, people who have been inflicted with Khazan's curse. That's where you actually first learn of this name in that game is Khazan. Okay, and as you progress to this game, in Dungeon and Fighter, the main game, like you'll see Khazan and like one or two characters from this first Berserker Khazan game as like raid bosses in it. So there is, a whole lore behind it, but you don't really need to, um, you don't really need to know that background in order to appreciate first Berserker Khazan. So it is an action RPG. It is a Souls-like, but it is like in the Souls-like in a sense, like how Neo is a Souls-like, where it definitely has that format of you're progressing through, um, you know, spaces that have checkpoints, and these checkpoints, when you interact with them, you can upgrade your stats, and when you interact with them, you get a full heal, and it replenishes your healing item, like your flask, so to speak, and respawns the enemies. You know, kind of that format in which Souls definitely popularized. But I reference Neo a lot in the review because they're kind of two sides of the same coin almost. Where a lot of the systems in this game is very Neo and from you're actually going through stages in this. It's not like a seamless open world or an overworld where like different biomes flow into each other. It's like no, these are you have this home base, this home nexus, and then you choose from a map like different stages you want to tackle, and they have a set
Yeah, I was
start,
gonna
set
ask,
end.
like, because in the demo, you don't get access to any of that, but I was
Yeah.
wondering, it's like you're picking nodes on a map, and each node
Yes.
is like a stage, so that's very
Yeah.
Neo. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and then as you're picking nodes on the map, it has like the recommended like level. There's the level of the stage. You'll fight enemies. You should probably be at this level, um, and such. And the gear progression is very Neo-ish, where you get a lot of loot in this game, different colors for different rarities. They have like attributes that you can eventually manipulate once you get like all the proper gear augmenting and crafting and all that stuff. And gear bonus sets, which like kind of like those are define your build because they have um really substantial bonuses that could add additional moves or different effects. The more gear pieces of a set that you have. Um, s- so and in this game, it unfortunately doesn't have like the weapon variety as Neo. There's only three different types of weapons you can choose. It's like great swords, spears, and then there's a dual wield option, which you have a sword and an axe in that dual wield. And then each of these three different weapons have their own skill trees. There's free respec in the game, but one of the things that you know, uh, my issues with this game is kind of like a lot of small little things that add up and like kind of are detrimental to what I experienced overall. But one of the things that irked me is like this free respec is cool, like free respecing anytime to experiment, like with different builds, different abilities, different weapons is cool. But the way this game handles it is really clumsy. Where let's say like I'm level 50 and I'm gonna switch to like going from dual wield to greatsword, for example. Um, when you respec, it respects all the skill points, and then you have to manually node by node select everything that you want to choose for that new weapon type. And there's also like a fourth tree, which is like their common abilities that you have to re pick everything. And let's say I choose all these things. I put like the 50 skill points or whatever into these trees to uh, get abilities for the greatsword. And then like 5 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm not really feeling it. So I have to respec again and then do node by node again, everything. So if you're the type that like wants to like likes to switch weapons constantly, because there's like no like weapon swapping in this game. You're hard committed. There's no you're switching to another weapon mid combat.
So I
You
know, so in a lot of skill trees, you can pick like a node. If you have a lot of points to use, you can pick a node deep in the tree, and then it'll kind of like unlock the route to get to that node, and you can save time that way, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. There's definitely
rather than doing one by one.
yeah, there's definitely like per node, respecing. Like, say I picked a node and I don't like it, you can definitely like click that node and say, take back that skill point on that singular node. But if it comes to like, hey, I want to choose another weapon and I want to have like abilities for that weapon, then you have to do a clean slate. There's not like I provided like one of very many potential viable solutions for this in the review. Or like you could have like had like some sort of like memory of like, hey, you spent all these skill points in the spear skill tree, so like if you ever respec again back into it, it'll remember what you spent it on, and maybe you can give you a toggle like, hey, would you like to spend like your skill notes previously to like what you spent it as, or like maybe when you level up in this game, you actually have um like what you gain like one common skill point, one spear skill point, one greatsword skill point, and one dual wield skill point, and like and then so like those are like segregated from one another. So like you're still picking out things, skills per tree, but like if you ever want to switch, you don't have to like do a clean slate on like picking things. It's just like it's like little things like that. That's like you could have probably done this better instead of like having to go through like like spend a few minutes having to like redistribute all your skill points every time you want to um switch to another weapon, for example. Let's say
Yeah,
like
I'm struggling with a boss, and I wanna try another weapon, but that means I gotta redo all the points. I'll just go again with what I got, sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. That's not like really like the biggest issues that I have with the game, but it's again it's like one of those things like other games have figured this out. It's like I kind of wish
Mm,
this was more intuitive, more you spend less time doing this type of
mhm.
stuff. But I digress. Um, so yeah, and for people who play the demo, it's a very simple, straightforward setup, story premise of the game where the Khazan was like a great general for this empire called the Pelos Empire. Um, for one reason or another, that find out through the game, he was branded as a traitor along with several other individuals. So the beginning of the story is him basically in exile, getting transported away from the empire. They've kind of cut off all functionality to his limbs, so he's like in a pretty bad state, and getting shipped off and like in these icy mountains. And then there's this mysterious entity called the Blade Phantom that recognizes that Kazan's like a worthy vessel. He looks like a warrior. That like this Blade Phantom intends to possess and Kazan and take full control of his body. So he possesses him. He gains the strength to like kind of break free from his captors, and you start the beginning of the game as like the Khazan and this Blade Phantom kind of wrestling control over his body. Eventually, fairly early on, the Khazan and the Blade Phantom recognize that they have mutual goals, so they'll help each other. Um,
It's right
fulfill
at the
each
end of the
other's goals.
demo, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So.
thought it was a bit ham-fisted. It's like, "I don't care if you take part ownership of my body as long as you help me get revenge. You help me, I
Yeah.
help you." It's like, okay." I
Yeah.
suppose that's equivalent.
Yeah, and it's a fairly straightforward revenge story. Like eventually, you'll find people along the way that you like. Yeah, were once Kazan supporters, and like they want to continue helping him on his mission to get back at like the people who betrayed him, and stuff. And and also you'll find like people who you once knew and like are now against Kazan, and they're working against like branding him as a traitor and stuff like that. So, the story is it's not like amazing, but it's like it's serviceable. It's not necessarily like the highlight of the game, but it's okay. I'm okay with having a simple, straightforward story. It doesn't have to be like super deep or anything. Um, so and then as you get further into the game, you like get more and more cutscenes that go to like they kind of give you like almost a parchment paper cutscene detailing like the backstory of like some of these characters. Wow, you know, they're where they were from, how did they come to be, etc. It's fairly simple, straightforward stuff, but the presentation is okay. Um,
The Neo comparison, I just think of like
hmm.
uh, Neo 2 may be a little bit more straightforward, but like Neo 1, I'm like, I don't really. What was the story in that game? I don't know.
Well, Neo
um,
1's oh, wait, I guess no, I'm thinking 2. Neo 2 is tricky because it's, like, weird time skips, but your character doesn't age, but everyone else around you ages.
I actually feel like I recollect 2's a bit more than 1 at this point. I don't
Mm.
know. But still.
yeah, and so um, one of the big things that irked me about this game, it was like unavoidable, and I know different people will plan differently on this, and I get it, but there's something that really bothers me about the look of this game, and I try to emphasize it the best way I can in a text review, which is challenging. Where I really like the look of this game in terms of like on an art direction level, where I think the character models look fantastic in the way they contrast with the background. Yeah, they use a very specific like high fidelity cell shading where it's not like other forms of cell shading where it could kind of come off as too like blobby. As the way I described it. In this one, there's definitely you can see like muscle definition. You can definitely see facial expressions like that aren't too exaggerated, but like they get the point across of what emotion they're trying to convey. It's a very lovely like art style. Like the character models in this game are very excellent, and the way that they kind of um go with the background is all fairly constructed like really well. I really like the direction, the way that they what style they decided to use. But the thing that really bothers me about the way they presented this is that the color direction in this game, the color palette is just so it's deliberately lifeless because it's in Khazan's world. It's like it's decaying, it's dying. There's enemies everywhere. There's corruption everywhere, and it, every kind of inch of it, it's like whether it's character interactions, battles, exploring a level, it's just like it's slightly desaturated to the point that like it feels like as you're exploring through levels, especially that like nothing really pops out or stands out or really catches your eye that makes like the visual composition look interesting. As you go through more and more levels, like everything just kind of starts looking the same almost, and it's just like and you're just going through like identical environments, and it's like yep, it's different tones of brown and gray. There's a little bit of like orange tinged in there, but it's just like they took the picture that kind of just sucked up the color um in this game, and it's a definitely deliberate decision, but it's one that like I just really disagree with because I think that like there are ways, especially that other games I've found that have like grim settings and like about this decaying, dying worlds, that they still are able to like infuse a bit of color in it to make like the colors pop and stand out and make the visual composition like really compelling to look at. While in this game, it's just kind of like, yep, it's a really dark level again that I have to.
Your description of this in the review made me think of like in a lot of games when you take damage, like especially modern
Mhm.
like shooter games, it does desaturate as like a visual indicator to like you're dying,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
weak, like it's like
Mhm,
that
mhm.
only all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
I forget, is there a mini map or no?
they're not through levels, no.
The reason why I ask is it's very traditional for Souls-like, 'cause, Dark Souls didn't have a mini map.
Yeah.
Now, I
And
know a
Neo
lot of
didn't
games
either.
now still yeah, a lot of games now do, but many still don't. Which, obviously, whether or not that matters kinda depends on this is gonna sound a little highbrow, like the artistry of the creators, like how well they lay out their layouts, the visual storytelling, the cues, coloring in that sense. Like if it ends up looking like bleak and gray and dark, like are you still able to like parse where you're supposed to go, what the path is? Like that sounds like it could be tricky if it's not done well.
Random aside, that reminds me of the game Steel Rising, which is
Oh, yeah.
which is like a French Souls like, and that game does
Mhm.
not have a mini map, true to the genre, but also it sucks because that game is set in Paris and like all the streets look the same, and it's just kind of like you were saying. I don't think that game does a good job. Like you don't really know where you are because like everything looks the same, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
tedious. Whereas a good game without a map, you can kind of get around just by landmarks or visual identity. And if you lose that, it can be kind of tedious. So
Yeah, and the stage layouts in this one is as linear as like something from Neo, where like it's really hard to like kind of get lost in the way forward because it is sort of a straight path with like there are different branching side paths for goodies, but that they definitely like have dead ends. And if it doesn't have a dead end, then it's like looping back to unlock a shortcut back to like a previous checkpoint. So it's easier to go back to where you were by unlocking that checkpoint. So it's not too difficult navigating around the level trial, like remembering where things are, because like you'll recognize right away if you're backtracking that like, oh, there's no enemies here, or like this looks like a room that like I've been through already, pretty much. So you recognize when you're backtracking for the most part. So but like Neo, like Neo doesn't have like the greatest stage design or layout, but it's functional in the sense that like there's a point
Mm.
A, there's a point B, and there's a point C. And sometimes when you go from point A to point B, there might be a side path to unlock a short cut back to point A. So the run back from so the trek from point A to point B is shorter if you happen to die on the way to point B. So it's that's not really what bothers me. It's more so that like kind of the color palette around it. Um, the the one thing I do like, there are two things I actually really like about this game. Generally, any variety in the bosses I think are good. They do a great job with it in this game. Whether they pulled a lot from the Dungeon and Fighter universe, which is totally fine. For like the common enemies, like there are some enemies that's like your typical fantasy creatures, like lizard men, for example, spiders or boars. Okay, but there's just like enough variety. Like there's one of the later late game enemies, for example, is like kind of like this like phantom armored knight that like can project phantoms of itself. So it's like it has like illusions of itself that it projects. So like if you're trying to like hit it, find an opportune time to hit it, you have to like remember it's like, okay, it's gonna do this move, and then there'll be like two phantoms that try to poke at you. So you have to dodge one, dodge two, and then that's when your time to attack it, because you have to remember that it projects phantoms. Like, okay, that's a cool enemy. I really um and the boss situation is funny because it is a pretty challenging game, even though there's two difficulties, easy and normal. I did normal just to get like just to see like what the base level was in general for this game, base like challenge level, and it is pretty damn tough at times for some of the bosses. Like one of the bosses I remember early on that I kind of really got mad at, and I had to switch from spear to greatsword for that boss, was this boss called Viper, and it's like a big lizard man with a spear. It has two phases, and it's pretty tanky. It has a lot of HP for that point in the game. So I had to really like after finally giving up on the spear against that boss, I went with greatsword and was able to beat it. Um, but the developers already um, released like a patch to nerf the HP on that Viper boss and another boss called Maluka. And both of these bosses have two phases to them, and they like either nerfed HP and or damage. I'm not sure exactly like all the number adjustments they did to them, but it was like on release day for the normal standard players. So people who got to play either the review build or the early access expensive edition that like unlocked like on Monday or Tuesday earlier this week, got to like see like what those bosses were. But then all the people who decided to like hop in at like just standard price normal release of the game, they got like the patched version of them, because this patch pretty much went out as that game like opened up to like the wider standard release players. I'm like, to me, I'm just like, that's kind of weird that like you just already
It's
nerfed
that's kind of
those right
quick for a
away.
balance patch of a single player
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Um, so that was weird because I don't know if they're just like scared of like people like bouncing off of like the game if they can't get past like these offer. And they buffed some of like the some other bosses, but they're not like as significant as like those two. Those- all the other ones that they detailed are like kind of more generic beast bosses that they toughened up, which is kind of like whatever. But those two, like for example, were very. I remember them. They were memorable because they were tough, and I'm like the kind of lessening that is like, I don't know. This early on is kind of weird. Like I could see like maybe 1 month down the line, like a
Makes
balance
sense
patch
to
on release
me
day. I
because
guess.
when I talked with them during TGS, they were very very explicit about how they didn't want to be called like a Souls like. They wanted to be called an action RPG. So maybe they're trying to really avoid anything that would invite those comparisons, even though it's obvious what it is.
Then they call it hardcore action.
I
And
mean, it's
and
one of those things that
it's
we
yeah,
kind
it's
of joke and poke fun at ourselves. Like, not every action RPG with a stamina meter and like deliberate combat is a Souls like, but this game has all the trappings of it. In terms of how the respawns work, how the item drops look. You don't know what it is until you pick it up.
and
Things
then,
like
and then
that.
like
Like,
like being a Souls like doesn't mean you're exactly like the Souls games,
Right.
right? Souls-like is like, hey, this
Yeah, there's still room
subgenre that's very
within
much
that genre
inspired.
to
Yeah,
move.
exactly. And like Souls-likes are able to find their identity. Like I listed Neo, for example. It found its own identity.
Mhm.
Stranger of Paradise found its own identity.
Still need to play that. I have
Even
not
though
played that one.
even though it's like, yes, it's very much an action RPG. It's definitely the fundamental roots of it, like the concept of it, was definitely within that Souls like genre, and then it decided to like do its own
Mhm.
with it. And I think that's like perfectly fine. Um, Another thing I really liked about this game, aside from like the enemies and bosses, like which were both like pretty well done, is like the gear progression in this game. It just kind of caught me off guard because I was like, oh, here we go. It's kind of the Neo thing again, where like you don't really care about Neo gear until like end of the
New
game,
Game
or like
Plus, yeah.
pretty much end of the game / New Game Plus. And this one, you care more about it before you beat the first playthrough of it because of the how important the gear set bonuses are. So you're starting to like for example, like some gear sets, like when you get 5 pieces or 6 pieces to it, it either unlocks a new move and or enhances a certain move. So like if say there's a strategy that you really like or a move that you really like, you have incentive to go for this gear set that is tailor made for that move. Um and also, you know, as you unlock all the things to enhance gear, you can tell that like the development team kind of understands the frustration of like how gear is done in other games. So like when you finally have the opportunity to like reroll attributes on gear, the only thing you really care about at that point is what are the gear set bonuses, and also um what the stat scaling is on a certain piece of gear. So like say you get like a level 82 gear and you're like level 98. You're like, man, I really like this piece of gear, but I would, because it has a gear set bonus that I want, and they don't really drop a lot from like enemies right now. So you can like feed gear of higher item level to it to gradually raise the gear of or item level of that piece. So it's on par like defense and stats wise with other pieces around like where your level is. But also you can spend resources like quote unquote the souls. It's called Lacrima in this game, um, to re-roll the attribute slots in that game, or on that piece of gear. So, for example, there's 2 attribute slots, and like one is for like stamina recovery, and the other is for like defense plus. It's like, okay, I don't really want those. I want something that like increases my damage on it. So let's say I click the attribute slot that's for defense plus, and I want to re-roll this. And now you're wondering, okay, what can it re-roll to? What are the possible options this can re-roll to? And is there like and how will I know whether it's a low roll or a high roll on that attribute? So you can actually like pop up a menu on this slot, and then it'll actually list you a whole bunch of like what is the possibility, like what attributes it can be re-rolled to, and then the numerical values that are ranges of like attack. Let's say it's increased attack damage, and then in brackets like 41 to 77. So you know that like what the lowest roll is and what the highest roll is on that attribute slot when you eventually roll that attack um on it. So it's one of those things like I appreciate that like it kind of gives you that info up front right away instead of like having to think of like, well, was this a good roll re-roll on this or not? And I know that some developers kind of obfuscate that info um in their games. So I kind of appreciate that here where like there's no guesswork on that end, being like, when you're trying to optimize gear um on it.
When you're re-rolling, is there any way to like, I don't know if pity's not the right word, but any way to guarantee that you'll get an improvement? Or if it's like, if I landed on 60 and it can go from 40 to 70, if I roll again, I might get something lower than 60. Like, you never
There
know.
is a there's a rarer item where you can re-roll a specific attribute slot and not change that attribute. So there is a consumable like item you can use for that, but this item is fairly rarer than than most items. So you can, but there is like a risk to it. Like,
Right.
you are
Mhm.
definitely, of course. I don't know how save scumming works. I didn't try save scumming it, but I assume there is some level of like you can probably save scum it to some degree. Um, but other than that, this game is pretty much your standard Souls-like action RPG. There's a focus on perfect dodges, perfect guards, to for various bonuses. Like there's like some spots in the skill tree where like, hey, if you do they call perfect guards and perfect dodges brink guards and brink dodges. Um, and you'll get like bonuses like, hey, if you um do a perfect dodge, you might get like a damage bonus, or you might have like increased stamina recovery momentarily. Um, and then there's like another meter beside your stamina called the spirit gauge. So and these like where abilities are, say like you have like an ability that consumes 2 spirit. So that means that ability doesn't consume stamina, it consumes spirit instead. So you can like I was hoping like there was like a way the way you can seesaw like the stamina and the spirit gauge. For example, like, hey, I used 80% of my stamina, so now I want to use an ability for that consumes spirit. And I was hoping that would flow more seamlessly than I im- initially conceptualized in my head, because I'm thinking it's like, oh, okay, they give you buttons in the meantime that don't consume stamina. So as you're recovering stamina, you still have options that you can do, and it doesn't really flow in a way that I would kind of wanted it to, where I thought I could like seesaw between those resources, and just the way that enemies are designed in terms of like their poise, their super armor, and um what they're able to do to you. It's like it doesn't really flow in the way that I wish it did, in that regard. Um, but it's like it's kind of like a minor point that once again it gets more um a little bit irritating as the game goes on because of how many enemies they throw at you in later stages, and then you kind of have to either run by them or pick them off one by one because of the way these encounters are designed. So I kind of wish they kind of gave you a better way to kind of keep the action flowing, because other than that, the stamina gauge in this game feels pretty restrictive compared to like other action RPGs of its ilk. Like like for example, Neo has the key pulse, so if you're able to kind of play well, you're able to recover stamina as you're continuing like extended assaults. So like by timing your key pulse is right, you're able to at least get like almost refund stamina. While in this game, there's not really that much of like a refund on stamina. You really have to be deliberate about how you're attacking and how much stamina you're leaving at the end of the attack, because you can get really exposed if you just like keep on attacking for like 2 to 3 seconds and not thinking about like your stamina usage in the middle of it. And it happens to like everyone pretty much. Like uh, people will constantly remember it's like, oh fuck, I'm out of stamina in this game. Um, and that is not a great feeling when it happens this often in this game, especially when you're leveling up in this game to like your bonfires, um and you're leveling up stats, and like let's say like your level, I don't know, 70, and it takes like, I don't know, 80,000 lacrima to find like to get to the next level. And like it's a good chunk, but at that point like you're starting to get like a lacrima at a more uh consistent pace, like in larger chunks, but it's still a good chunk of lacrima that you're spending for like another level. But like say I want to level up a stat in like willpower, for example, and then the next level of it's like you get 0.4% stamina recovery and like plus 50 HP, and I'm like, great, cool, I
Yeah,
guess.
those it never feels good when those are your upgrades. Like, "Oh, great, now I have 1 extra third of a second on my whatever," or something,
Exactly.
on the duration of this buff.
Yeah, so I was just like, all right, and like
That
and
reminds
then
me. That reminds me with Final Fantasy 16, where the whole reason why I keep saying it would have been better if it didn't even try to be an RPG is like when you upgrade a piece of equipment and it's like, this gives me like less than 1% of a difference. Why'd I even bother?
I really hate like action RPGs that just like give you like a here's something percent of like this stat. It's like, oh god, just stop, just stop. I don't like when action RPGs do that. It's so like it's like a fraction of an increment.
I would turn that around and I'd say I hate when action games pretend to be RPGs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. Um,
I was gonna
um,
ask, like in terms of like side optional content, like in Neo, that's our kind of our main point of comparison. After you do a stage, there's like underneath that stage, like on the menu, there's like submissions that usually take you to like a part of it where your objective is slightly different. And they're obviously usually much shorter, where it's like you're gonna revisit the location from stage 3, but you're gonna go in this direction and fight a mini boss or gather a thing or
yeah,
so what does optional stuff in Kazan look like?
it's very much exactly that one to one. So like after you finish a main story stage, there might be like some NPCs back in the hub that like you talk to and then say have a bonus like one of their options beneath them after you start talking about is like bonus mission and then you talk about like this mission that they want you to go on. So like in Neo, like that stage will appear as a selection underneath that region of where that main story stage took place, and then you select that bonus mission, and then it'll take place like at some chunk of that stage that you just went through. But it could be like either like in reverse, or it could be like it'll take you to a different part of that stage, and then you can get like optional like goodies from it, like say like new recipes to craft different armor sets. For example, at the end of that, it'll have a boss enemy, whether it's like a big like beast enemy that has like uh, a boss life bar to get through, or like a remix of a previous boss that you've um
Hmm.
fought that has like different like move set patterns and stuff. So it's very very similar to how
In
Neo
that vein,
does it.
yeah.
Yes. Just another thing that's very similar to Neo in this game. Um, let's see what else. This game has multiple endings. It's pretty interesting how it does multiple endings. Where at the final stage, like it kind of depends on three factors because there's three different endings. One is if you didn't complete all the bonus missions or bonus side missions, etc. Um, you're locked into like I'll call it the quote unquote normal end. Then you can get a second ending. I'll call it the good end, quote unquote good end, and that's done by like finishing all the side missions in the game. And then the true ending is like if you finish all the side missions plus collect all these notes. I won't say like what type of notes they are because it is a spoiler on what these notes are. But you collect all these special notes along with the side missions, and then when you talk to this NPC at the final stage, there's like this almost like Soccer Wars esque timed selection where you have three different options depending on if you like meet all the criteria. Um, and then um, you select basically which ending you want. Say like I want to find out the truth. That'll be like true end, or like there's I forgot what the other one was good at, etc. But what's interesting about this is that each like ending you do or what ending you do will add on phases to the final boss. So like if you want to do normal end, it's only one phase. Good end, it's two phases of the boss. And then obviously if you do the true end, it's all three phases of the boss, and they're all
That's kind of cool.
different. Yeah, it's a really really hard fight too. It's a fucking tough ass fight. But yeah, it's
Good.
cool.
One of my favorite things from playing Nine Souls last year is that true final boss is just as bad as the final boss of Sekiro.
Yep.
Uh, so but it is a game that like it definitely wears it doesn't like hide its inspirations, but it also doesn't really do anything new. It does it competently, but it also just does it like really sloppily at times. Like as you can tell from all these comparisons to Neo, it definitely took a lot of inspiration from Neo, but there are things about it that like it definitely took inspiration from Neo, but then added it like in a really, to be blunt, pretty half-assed way. For example, the Red Phantom system in Neo, if you remember, like there's like fallen like swords in Neo, and when you go up to them, you can see like their gear, so you can fight a phantom with that gear that it displays, and then like you fight it, you beat it, and then you get a random piece of gear from it. So if you're like targeting a specific gear that you want for you that you can't find anywhere else, or you don't have like the recipe to craft it right now, that could be a way that you could um, obtain that gear is through that red phantom. In this game, it has a very similar system where it has that red phantom system, but when you hover over like these designated spots to summon the red phantom, it doesn't show their gear at all. It just says like, oh, a force of adversity or whatever. That's it. Like it doesn't show their gear, so you're like, you don't know what red phantom you're summoning, what it'll wear,
That's
and
bullshit. Like the whole reason why you wanted to fight the Red Phantoms and Neo is you could tell what their gear was and you would go like deliberately for it.
yeah, exactly. So it's just like, so it's like, I don't know why you did this. Like, I don't know why this system is here. Like, the only reason you'd summon red phantoms in this game feasibly is not through gear farm, but to like gain a drop, so you can use that drop to summon an NPC phantom for bosses. And this NPC phantom is like, it's kind of useless. They kind of die really fast. You can like sort of upgrade them over time, the more side stuff you do, but I have never found them useful at all. Like I summoned them like 3 times just to see like if there's any difference of like their usability, or if they made things like easier at all. And it's like not really. They just kind of they take aggro for like a split second before they die. And that's it. It's like, all right, cool. So I didn't really mess with that system. Like after seeing it, I was like, there's no, I'd rather just solo these. Um, and there's no like direct multiplayer at all. There's all single player pretty much. You can't play with another person. Um, and also, what else? You also gain like after a certain point, you gain like a phantom form in this game, where like you fill up this bar, you can transform into like this phantom form, but that bar is constantly draining, and all like um if you take damage on it, obviously you're not taking damage to your HP. It's only to that phantom bar, so you can use it like almost like as a way to like tank from hits. But also there's like skills associated to it that you can create on the skill tree that also take phantom bar. So it's kind of like those like a weird transformation where like it only lasts very momentarily, and the most, from what I can tell, the best use case for it is basically to cleanse debuffs from you. Or if you just have like a little bit of boss HP bar left and you have a phantom gauge available, it's like, okay, I might as well try to beat it at before I die. So it's like this phantom form is like, it's cool on paper. It looks like it has some flashy cool stuff. I did some, I did like a katana, quick draw katana uh move for it that I invested in, but like I can only do it like maybe 2 to 3 times at most before it just ran out, and then I'm back to my base form. So it's like a very it's one of those things that looks like it's a bigger part of the game, but it really isn't. Um, so it's like, okay, whatever. It's like different little systems like that, and the Red Phantom system. That's like, I kind of wish these were more meaningful or impactful, but they really aren't. They kind of feel like they were almost added last minute, or just kind of very, they added it and then they never really thought about making them mean making them feel substantial, or impactful at all. So it's just like, it's one of those things that's like, it is with this rating of 6, I think it's an above average game. It's completely serviceable. I can see why people would enjoy it and like it, and that's totally fine. I don't mind that. That's great that people like it. But for me, it's kind of hitting a lot of those same Neo beats, but not really hitting it as well. And I know that's like unfair to it in the sense that like, we couldn't be as good as Neo. It's not necessarily that, but it's just like you're you're definitely trying to copy things in a Neo way, but you're not but there are things about it, just little things about it from like multiple sources that add up to really, the sum is lesser than the whole, or whatever. However, that how the opposite of that phrase, pretty much, where like It's just like it just feels like a lesser experience, despite the sum of its parts. You know.
It sounds like the game where you just sort of describe it. It's like it's fine. It's a fine
Yeah,
game.
it's fine. Yeah, it's total like
It's fine.
it's above average.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's if they continue with this, I would like to see them I want to see them do like the first other things, for example, like how the first gunslinger or the first mage, like how those games would go, and maybe not necessarily constrict themselves to this action RPG format. Maybe explore maybe other genres or other types of gameplay, other RPG systems. Like say like maybe the first gunslinger is like maybe a turn-based RPG this time, for example,
Maybe the
Mhm.
first gunslinger is like a Borderlands.
or that, yeah, you know.
Didn't they have a
So
trailer before and they showed them like a group fighting instead? And just
So
like
yeah, so this is the game that the concept of this was called Project Barbecue at first, and if you don't know, if you're listening right now, you're like, what is this Project Barbecue? Just search up Neopol Project Barbecue or Project Barbecue. I deliberately did not mention Project Barbecue in this game because I think it would be unfair to the review of this game to mention Project Barbecue because Project Barbecue looked so promising. It had very vibrant visuals and like had like multi classes in it, different classes, and like it looked really cool. But I think mentioning that and it turning into like the first Berserker Khazan is unfair to this game because it's like that's very normal in game development where you have a concept that may or may not look cooler than like what the final product is, but that shouldn't be used as a penalty for Khazan because you preferred that initial concept.
Because the concept's always, implemented perfectly in your head.
Yeah,
Like when people
exactly.
look at concept art, like there's a lot of examples. The biggest one that I can think
Final
of,
Fantasy
Versus
13 I can think
13.
of in
Yep.
my
I was
Well,
gonna
but it's like,
say the
yeah.
Epic Mickey concept art.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
that one
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Mhm. What were you gonna say, Brian?
I was just gonna say, like, oh, that would have been so neat if they just kept it like that. But you didn't see the prototype. You didn't see, the storyboarding. You only saw the vertical slice or the concept trailer or we don't know like how it was coming together.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and
sort of thing.
I think and I think that's totally like out of scope for like mentioning it in a review.
Right. No, I think that's a prudent standpoint.
Mhm. But yeah, that's
So
pretty much
for
like kind of my thoughts on First Berserker Kazan. I think if you really like these Souls like games and really like Neo and are itching for like a Neo like experience, I think this will be perfectly fine for you. I think this is like I said, pretty solid, and I know that like a lot of other people are liking it as well, way more than I am, and that's totally fine. I'm glad that people enjoy this game, and I think these developers should continue, strive to make like console games of this caliber.
Mhm.
Yeah, obviously better, but in my opinion, but I think there's definitely if they make a sequel, for example, there's definitely a lot of lessons. I hope they learn from it and to make it like an
Hmm.
even better game down the line. It's cool to see that just in general, a lot of people like user reception, player reception in general is really positive.
so we do have Josh's review for the first Berserker Kazan up on the site at rpgsite.net. And this one's a little bit of an interesting case. We don't get this happening too often, once a year or less. But the second game we're going to be talking about is SaGa Frontier 2 Remastered. Of course, this game was just announced as part of the Nintendo Direct, which of course we'll be going through all the headlines of that, just downstream from this point in the podcast. And since that was announced, we were recording this on Saturday. That was announced on Thursday. Was that was the day of the Direct, or was it Wednesday? I don't remember. But either way,
Yeah, I think it's
Chow
Thursday.
has
Yeah,
Thursday. Okay, so
yeah.
Chow has already played through, I think, the entirety of SaGa Frontier 2 Remastered.
I
Played
haven't
through?
done post game content.
Okay, not the post game. Well, SaGa post game is like endless
Wow,
sometimes.
wow, Chow! I can't believe you did it completely 1000% it within like barely 48 hours of this new release of it. That's
Look,
crazy.
someone tell me. I told Alex I could whip out a guide in 2 days. I don't know why I did
and
that.
Hmm.
and you held to your guns. So obviously, SaGa Frontier 2 Remastered, as obviously titled, is a remaster of SaGa Frontier 2. This is a game that we were expecting for a while. I think actually a few years ago, Paul put up a kind of an op-ed saying like, I really enjoyed SaGa Frontier 1 Remastered. Where's 2 Remastered? Here it is. So it's kind of been one of those things that we knew was coming, but didn't know when it would come, and it came on just last week. So, Chow, you, I think, out of everyone here, has the most affinity for Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. I know that Josh also played it when it originally came out. I know Adam and I have not played the original Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. And so maybe, Chow, you can kind of lead us off on your time with the original game, your time with a remaster. What to kind of describe the game, because every Saga game kind of works slightly differently. Is this very similar to Saga Frontier 1 or not? So what are your thoughts on Saga Frontier 2 Remastered?
I think it's great. I just feel there's still some little missed opportunities with this game. It's just, but
With the remaster
everything,
specifically.
yeah. So, anyways, when you boot up this game, I ask you, do you want to include the new content or do you want to just play it as the original release, like like the PlayStation version with all the new quality of life features and stuff? So that's the first thing that you do when you boot up the game, right?
That's pretty cool.
So
What
I
what
feel
what,
like
what
this is how they would fix up Unlimited Saga. Do you want to play our fixed version, or do you want to play the piece of shit that we released back?
always the latter. Always the original. Give me the straight port unlimited saga. But the like the kind of just in general, before we get into it, like the things that they mentioned on the direct, because I only saw like the Nintendo Direct show this game is, there's like new event scenarios, and there's also like a new like new they added like new party member slots to battles. I think I try to remember like how the direct trailer phrased it as.
So one of the things that you gotta know in this game is that you don't really get to play characters for too long, right? Because there's a lot of the game is a timeline kind of based, right? It'll be like, oh, it's like after this amount of years, like this character is gone from the party, right? And I think that's like the biggest problem with the original game is that there's no closure for a lot of the characters. It's just like, oh, they join your party once and they're gone, right?
So
And
yeah, it's basically like telling the life of someone, and then you're just experiencing it from their perspective. It's very like a come and go sort of like a cadence to like the party member system.
So one of the things that they try to fix this problem is they have this new system called party inheritance, so that whatever character that you leveled up, you gain their level ups, not their passive status. That's what people need to know, right? So
Okay.
just because this one guy has like the strongest passives, like was it Claimer is like Gustav's teacher. This guy in the original game, you only get to use him for one chapter, and that's it. But the guy has like insane magic stats to start and insane martial arts stats. And then you're like, I wonder if I could just transfer his like awesome magic stats over. No, you would get nothing. It's like how much you leveled this guy and you
Okay,
just
it's
get the
just
level
yeah, she's
ups.
leveled up. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. And for for people to kind of just to back up a bit, it's not like the first Saga Frontier. There's a totally separate from the first Saga Frontier, and also in its structure where this game it doesn't give you like like a multiple party or character selection at the beginning. It's like you boot up the game, it's pretty linear
Yeah,
compared to
it's
the.
linear, it's fixed. So every party member is like fixed for whatever thing. So there's two stories in Cyber Frontier 2, right? It's about okay, it's Gustav the Steel, as in okay, so he's a exiled prince, and then the other one it's about William Knights, which is he's actually like more of the main gameplay loop. Gustav is more about like the world building, right? So
Mhm.
usually, like in most places, like the Gustav story is amazing in my opinion, but there's a lot of problems with it around like the later half of the story. It becomes kind of disjointed and then you just kind of like don't know what happened to like a lot of the characters later on. And he doesn't even have like any battles in like the later half. It's like his scenario feels incomplete in my opinion, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
there's lots of plot holes in his scenario. Like one of them, it's like okay, so eh, let's start off like how his story goes. Basically, his story goes that he's a prince, right? And when they turn 7, they would held the firebrand sword, which is like this fire sword, and then the sword will glow to say that they have like anima, which is like this magical energy that they live on, and the sword does not glow, so he is considered a useless, good for nothing. So they exiled him, right? And then the whole story is him trying to come back to his whole kingdom, and he conquers it, and he does all this kind of stuff, and so that's the Gustav scenario, right? And it has a lot of battles and stuff, but the later half it has no battles. It's just all about war and politics and stuff, right?
Mhm.
So he's not really the
No battles, just war.
basically. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. This
basically Gustav's route, right?
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
So if you go and play William Knights, which is basically the entire like main core of the story. In fact, you don't even get to see the ending if you beat Gustav's route. You have to beat William Knights to get the ending, right? Which is kind of weird, but that's how the game is designed, right? So in William Knights, it's basically he's just like a treasure hunter, right? They dig for these treasures from the past called quells, and his route basically goes from him meeting this guy that his father used to work with, and they found this artifact called like the egg, and the egg is the main bad guy of SaGa Frontier 2. Basically, anyone who touches the egg, their memories become corrupted, and then they will start to like be consumed by it, right? And once you touch it, you're basically screwed, right? And basically, this guy killed his family, and then it becomes a whole hunt for generations of their family try to break the egg, right? The egg always ends up in some random person's hand, and then William was trying to destroy the egg, and he couldn't do it, so it ends up to his kid and his grandkid. So that's basically William Knight's route, right?
And to give people like illustrate like the thing that really like distinguishes the game like from the rest of like the SaGa series is like it's the look of the game, because like it's like kind of like a not really a pre-rendered background, but more like it's like a hand-drawn sketched background that you're traversing through, like almost like an isometric view of
Very
your
much like
characters.
Legend of Mana.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest changes I do like in this remaster is they added some pointers, like to tell you that you could exit out of this area.
Yeah, like the first SaGa Frontier were remastered, where like you had like different. They added arrows of like the where you could interact the background, right?
Oh
That
yeah,
was a
you're
new
right.
thing.
You're right. So I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the things I missed out in the original game was this Beast Lance. It's like this very powerful weapon that has unlimited durability. I didn't know that you could enter the pillar and start warping to get it.
That's funny.
And in this version, it's like, oh, it just marks that you can insert the pillar. It's like,
That's
damn.
good.
I
That's
was wondering
good.
why. It's like
Yeah,
I thought
because
the ice.
it looks like in the original, like, and in this remaster, like it looks like you're traversing almost like a painting of a background. But like in the original, you just didn't know what you could interact with when you're
And
running around it.
you just kind of touch everything and just hope that you go in or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
that's like one of the changes. So there, but like if you choose to include the new content, there's lots of like little minor changes, right? It'll be like, oh, it's like this guy, like, okay, one of the people that joins Gustav's party is Calvin, right? Calvin is a royal family, right? And when when you play as him in the original game, he just starts with like crappy equipment, right? But in this version, he has like his family heirlooms. He has like this legendary like spear because it's part of their family heirloom. So it's like little minor changes like that. It's like everybody has like little minor changes, right?
Do they actually call them like heirlooms? Like, is that like an actual game term, or is it just
No,
these
it's a
characters are coming
quail.
with?
It's a quail, basically a relic of but
Okay.
it says on the descriptions like they're a family heirloom or some sort, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
So it's like everybody has like something, right? It's kind
yeah,
of cool, I
And that's
think.
all new.
Yes,
cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
because in the original they would just start out like with a generic weapon, right?
yeah.
And here it's like, oh, he has like a quail of some sort, which makes a lot more sense because he's a royalty, right?
I have a question for you, Chow. Since the kind of the context of when and where SaGa Frontier 2 is released, like right now, it's finally released in like the digital HD era, right? Where a lot of people had a lot of like memories playing this on the PS1 on CRT TVs, and I think there's been some kind of like weirdness around the way that the backgrounds and the pixel sprites mesh with the backgrounds in this digital HD era, where like because the backgrounds had to be upscaled, and there's definitely
Yeah,
some weirdness with the backgrounds because you're seeing it on more like on a digital feed and higher fidelity. So like those details stand out more, even though they might have been in the original. Like it was better. Like it looked better to you because it was designed for a CRT TV at the time, and that's why the pixel sprites like blended better in the backgrounds compared to like how this one might look now. Do you think that like those pixel sprites and those high upscaled assets in the um like the hand sketch backgrounds, like did they take time, or did they bother you when you were like revisiting this game
I don't think they bother me. I think what bothers me the most is the font. I think the
Okay.
font choice is very poor. I think it looks like a mobile game, which is I think it's fair because it's designed
It's
for
also,
iOS and
is it also on mobile?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty
So
sure every SaGa game that's released in the last decade has been also on like mobile
Yeah, that's why I had
devices.
to ask. I was like,
Except Revenge of the Seven.
oh yeah.
But yeah, I think the font choice is the worst sin of this game. I feel like it has none of like the charm of the original font.
Hmm.
So that's me right here.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Do you think it's more readable than the original, or just you thought the original was
I think
fine?
both is readable. I think the
Okay.
original it's a little harder to read because it looks like a very neat handwriting in my opinion. But
Hmm.
in this one, it's just like a thick, a bold kind of like font,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. It just looked like shitty mobile game font if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like it's one of those tough things where like the original font might have looked better stylistically, but there's definitely a subset of people. There's definitely people out there that's like it's difficult to read for. They might have like some sort of condition where like their eyesight might not.
Dyslexia, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So having that font be readable, I guess, is kind of the trade off that you make for that style look.
But yeah, like I think that's like the only thing that bothered me with how
Mm.
it looks. The 3D looks fine. It's like and but performance wise, I don't know. I definitely having some weird issue playing this game on PC. If I try to go full screen, it just kind of lags for for a game that I think it's just like the refresh rate just
Oh,
all haywire on me for when I'm playing on PC.
is
I
that
don't know.
is that a
That
common issue, or are people like
I
I don't know
I
if
don't
that's
know.
you
I think
or
it's just a me problem.
that
oh.
sounds like the similar issues people had with the Legends of Mana PC port. So maybe it's the same team that handled it since it's a similar like visuals.
Mhm. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the state of the PC port is on this. I haven't really researched it.
Time to go play it on iPhone.
There we
Gotta
go.
got to love how with Square Enix remasters, it's a crapshoot on whether or not it's going to be like not even if it's going to be good or bad, or just like how it's going to be handled in general.
Yeah, it's definitely because like this released on everything, right? Like all platforms, pretty much. I think.
Yeah.
Mhm. So,
No Xbox. I'm sorry.
oh, no Xbox. Okay.
All relevant platforms then.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oof.
So,
I mean, if everything's an Xbox, then can you really say if it releases on PS5, it's not on Xbox?
James still reliving the good old days of like that month old marketing of everything's an Xbox.
Month-old marketing, they had it plastered all over GDC too.
Oh, did they? Okay, I didn't
Oh,
know.
they're still going? Wow.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
There were some people wearing shirts and everything.
Oh, is there really a shirt that says "I'm an Xbox" out there?
Yes.
I want that. You really need that. That sounds stupid. Uh, but Chow, I know that Saga Frontier 2, you along with many others, like this is definitely one of the higher, if not one of your most favorite, like Saga entries. Just like kind of tell people like what makes Saga Frontier 2 so special compared to like the rest of the Saga game.
I think what makes it special, it has like a coherent story compared to most Saga games, right? But most Saga games is like you kind of try to fill in the void by yourself. But this one, it just tells you like a straight up RPG. It
It's more
feels
of a
more like Final
traditional
Fantasy.
structure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's like one of the things I do like about it. Obviously, that's not what people see in the Saga game, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And
um,
what elements of it do you think like since it's like so closer to traditional structure, what are like kind of like one of the more quote unquote saga aspects of it, like more outlier aspects do you think of this game that kind of make it a saga game?
that would be the arts. You just want to like watch certain story scenes so that you could get this one character because they have a unique ability and only they have it. And once he's playable, then everyone gets that ability. You know what I'm saying?
And that kind of explain to people in general like that gameplay system of like being able to share arts among your party.
So basically, in this game, it's like it follows like just like Cyber Frontier. So when you use ability, they like depending on how difficult to fight and how much their skill level with that weapon is. It's like that's when they learn the like the ability, right?
Mhm.
So this one is granted by like skill levels. Everyone has like a certain amount of skill level with their abilities, and there will be like a plus symbol on it. And if they have a plus symbol, it means that they're more like they're just better with that weapon,
Did they
right?
have that in the original, or was that is
Yes,
that
they
a new
have
thing?
that.
Okay.
But I think one of the big changes, like in this remaster, is that the equipment system is a lot more expanded. I guess it explains a little more detail. And the other one, in the original, it'll just say this item gives you 10 defense, right? But
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
now it expands it. It tells you like if you equip this, you're resistant to cold, like fire, blah 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 blah, has like different values and stuff. Now you're like questioning, like, oh, maybe this equipment wasn't that great after all, right?
Oh, okay. So it actually okay. That's interesting that it surfaces a lot more on that. Yeah, that's good. I'm a big fan.
So there's that little thing that on UI elements, like when it comes to battles, like things are a lot more explained on the UI front on battles and stuff, right?
Mhm.
But one of the things that differentiates this game from other games is the dueling system, which is very you either hate it or you like it. I'm kind of indifferent about it. So
What
basically,
is it for people who don't know?
in Saga Frontier 2, sometimes occasionally when you fight monsters, your characters can go on a one-on-one duel with this character. And if you know the combination of the move, the character can instantly spark it, right? But not guaranteed. So you'll be like doing all this, and you don't know the combination unless you learn the skill before, or unless you look up a guide, right? So,
Yeah. So
so
it's
it's
like
like,
it's like the opposite of trial error, where like it's like, oh, you did it, so now you know, but in retrospect, it would have been nice to know beforehand.
and sometimes it's like this thing is kind of counterintuitive. Maybe you did pick the right combination, but your character just didn't have the right enough skill level and just didn't spark it. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I just feel like the system is kind of it does not work right in my perspective, and people are just gonna look up a guide to cheat on it. Really,
Mm.
right?
Do you think people who because Revenge of the Seven was a big thing for the series last year, like a lot of people who had never played Saga before gave Revenge of the Seven a shot and really loved it. Do you think people who like Revenge of the Seven would like Saga Frontier 2?
Mm, I don't think so. I think they're okay. I think if you like the inheritance system, I guess this one it's like the remaster has something to address that because in the original there was nothing to address that, right? Our
Yeah,
character is just gone, right?
yeah.
And it just the last party is just so strong compared to everyone before it. It's like it doesn't feel like an issue, right?
It really
But
feels like comparing like the reception to from like normal players, not Saga sickos, but even Saga sickos between Revenge of the Seven and Emerald Beyond. Square Enix really should put a lot more budget into the next Saga game because I think Revenge of the Seven's success proves that if they actually put a budget behind a Saga, it can do very well.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be interested to see like yeah, what a brand new like I mean, it's kind of weird to say it's like well, Emerald Beyond is brand new, but also it's like a brand new saga in the ilk of Revenge of the Seven, less so than Emerald Beyond, which is a weird thing to say, you know. But yeah, but do you think Chow that like people will like the inheritance that does this remastered introduced, but do you think there's really nothing else that people can latch on to?
I think that's probably the thing that you'll latch onto the most. I think this the biggest selling point of Sega Frontier 2 is the art direction. The music is godly. I love
Hmm.
the soundtrack. This is Hamasu's like first work with Square Enix, I think. I believe it is. I don't
Really?
know. Or his first like where he composed the entire soundtrack by himself, right? So it has like all this piano music from him and it's entirely Hamasu right here, right? So
Okay.
I think one of
Okay.
the reasons why I love this game so much is the soundtrack, right? It's
Mhm.
like every time I boot up Sega Frontier 2, I would always listen to the entire title theme
Yeah,
before I would hit the
it
load
definitely
screen.
has a fantastic soundtrack, and that's always been one of my favorite things about it.
So yeah, that's like one of the reasons I love it. But like objectively, it's like I don't think it's the best Saga game, objectively. But it's just
Mhm.
like it has so much charm that I just love playing this over and
Yeah,
over.
and
Right?
that is one of I looked it up because I was curious. Hamazu, it's one of his earliest works because he
Mm.
did Front Mission Gun Hazard. I don't know what that is.
That's a Super
Chocobo's
Nintendo
Mys-
side scroller.
Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, the original,
Yeah.
and then Saga Frontier 2, and then the next thing he worked on was Final Fantasy X, of course, with Matsu.
Oh, wait, that was his next one after this? Wow.
No, no, like he worked on Saga Frontier 2 in 1999, and then Final Fantasy X in 2001.
Wow.
So, mhm,
Ah.
so
Yeah,
cool. And that makes me
Crazy.
more excited to play it, just to be like, "All
Yeah.
right, I'm gonna play this for the soundtrack."
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the soundtrack's amazing in my opinion. There are some new songs, but it's in the new event. I hear it in the new event. It's like either a remix of some sort or they're just new songs.
Do they have the toggle in the options whether you want to hear the new arranges or the
No,
original?
no,
Like
no.
the
There is like no new arrangement. They use the original song,
okay.
but there is a
Okay.
new there's new events where you get to play like new optional characters because they expanded the lore a little bit, right? Where they added
Mhm.
like a total of 16 new events from what I counted, or
Oh wow, that
that's
seems like a
16.
lot.
It's like okay, maybe about 15 new events, right? It'll be like, but I still feel it's a missed opportunity because there's this one character. It's just like, oh, it's like they didn't explain anything about this character, and I feel like it's like I am mad. I waited 25 years to get some explanation what happened to this character, and I still didn't get it. It's like, but they did
Yeah,
fix up
yeah.
some plot holes with this remaster, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest issue in the original version, you would literally need to buy like the perfect work, which is like the SaGa's version of the Ultimania or whatever, like from Final Fantasy, which is this gigantic like book that explains all the development of the game and all these details, and you would need to buy that book to get that one detail. And this game added a new event to fix that plot hole, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's a. I think they even mentioned it in the Square like blog where it's like, oh, we added this event or something like that. So I don't think it's a huge spoiler, but one of the thing is that the last line of Gustav's family, it's like, uh, was it it's like apparently Gustav never have any kids, but yet the final like the final guy you use is related to Gustav somehow, and you're like, how is he related? Oh, and
Yeah, okay, yeah. That is kind of cleaning up some cobwebs, man. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That was a
right?
thing.
So it's like, yeah, it solved that plot hole, right? So it's like, oh, okay, now you get to see these people hook up, and then it's like, okay, that makes sense now. Right? So,
Okay.
so yeah,
So
I think the new events are great. Actually, like they're really well written, and they're there. But I feel like there's just a missed opportunity not explaining a few
You
of the
want more.
characters.
You want remastered,
it's not
remastered.
enough. But that's cool that they finally got Saga Frontier 2 out. I mean, that it is definitely like once you see it, it's like wow, it's like oh, I haven't really seen any game like that in terms of like just at first glance the way that
Like, yeah,
you.
I just love all the new events. Like, one of them
So,
is literally Gustav is, Gustav becomes like so fucking strong like, around like in his mid 30s, and he literally would just like, it's like, okay, you guys bring a dragon, fun. I will just kill it by myself. Oh, it's like
uh,
shit like this is like makes me smile, right?
mhm. Yeah.
But
Um.
like,
that-
but yeah,
After so now they've got Saga Frontier 2. They have one really big like if they were to continue these re-releases of old Saga games, they everyone's thinking about it in this space. What do they do with Unlimited Saga?
it's exactly what happened here. You choose to include new content, and then the choice of not including new content
I
for
I
the
don't know how they're
purest
gonna do it.
sicko out there.
I don't know how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I think this game tells you what they wanted to do. Because once you put up the game, it says, "Do you want to play with new content on or without the new content on?" If you choose not to play with the new content on, it's like it will be like the original game, and you cannot turn it back on. So
Yeah, but like, do you think they're gonna like? I don't even know if if new content would fundamentally quote unquote
well, technically,
be
with this party inherent system, the battle system's already fundamentally changed. It's like now I don't have to
yeah
spend like hours to grind these characters. It's like I could just borrow the level up some of these characters, and then it's like
yeah
I'm already like it saves half of the grind time, right?
yeah that's true. I don't know,
So
man.
I'm saying like if they change the how certain system works in Unlimited Saga, maybe less of that stupid ring system, and I don't know, just kind of work it, tweak it a little bit, because I do see some potential in there. It's like that game felt sort of like Scarlet Grace in a way, but not quite there yet. So I don't know. Definitely could see something coming from this one.
What if they just surprise us and they Revenge of the Seven in? And you're like, you know what?
They
We're
need to
just
fix
gonna.
that game. Okay, there is one redeeming quality. Okay, I love Myth's route. Okay,
Mhm.
in Unlimited Saga. It's been a long time since I played. I just remember this guy. He just looks at a painting. He's like, this girl. looks, I don't know, it's like it's so mysterious. I gotta find this girl, and he spends the entire game looking for this girl. That's basically his entire route. It's just so weird. You know?
Yeah.
Oh
What
no.
what what, what other game?
But Unlimited Saga is like the last one, right? I was trying to think if there were any more.
Mm,
The only other thing I can think of is, will we have to wait 20 years for a remake of Romancing Saga 3? Because they remade the
Yes.
first two.
True. Yeah.
yeah.
I
I mean,
I think they probably would make 3 before they touch on Unlimited Saga, since the reception of Unlimited Saga is kind of
Hmm.
mid or worse.
no, it's definitely not mid. It's definitely the word around the sheet for Limited Saga over the years is it is one of the worst games you'll ever play. And I don't think it's one of the worst, but it's very, very experimental, I would say.
I say it's convoluted to understand.
You need a very, very open mind and a lot of time a lot of patience to get it.
You
And
know,
that's a
not to like, I'm gonna go on a tangent here. I finally played Ragran's story for the first time, and that game is hella convoluted in my opinion.
it is pretty convoluted. It is
And then
cool, but
it's
it's
like
not
this
convoluted.
is rated as like the god games of all time, but it's like the convoluted Unlimited
You,
Saga is
you
not
do have
rated
to,
the god game of all time.
like Vagrant Story is a game that like you can understand it if you go search up outside resources to explain its systems. But if you're just going into Vagrant Story completely blind and you try to learn all the systems just from the game itself, you need to have some level of patience. It is definitely not a game that explains itself all that well on its own. Um, I love the game to pieces, but yeah, it's definitely not the most friendly to learn.
So it's like I think what they need is just a better tutorial maybe to explain Limit Saga, because I I think I tried to watch one tutorial video on how to play the game, and the video was like over an hour long. At the end of it, did I even understand what the hell was happening at the end?
It reminds me of since I'm still going through Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. It's like that in my memory as I played through that, it's like man, they added a lot more tutorial pop up messages in this game compared to the original, and it feels like it's better explained. But it's also I'm working off of like cause like off of like memory because I remember in the original game I actually sat down and read through the entire manual first before I actually played the bulk of that game.
Hmm.
And it was still okay. Like I understand a lot more reading that in-game manual front to back, even though it didn't explain everything perfectly. Like Overdrive, for example, and how that. I remember the in-game manual explaining Overdrive as like you can mix and match colors for like various effects, and that's it. Like thanks game,
Yeah,
appreciate
I did forget to
it.
mention this game does have a tutorial. You press start, there's a hint button, and you press start for tutorials for things that you might be lost on. So,
Mhm.
so I think
Yeah,
that's a standard Saga thing nowadays. There is tutorials for things if
yeah,
you want to read it.
they definitely want Saga to be more. They don't want to kind of obfuscate info as much as they did in the past in these entries now.
Yeah, it kind of
Hmm.
makes no sense to obfuscate those kind of info. It's just like this is their basic gameplay system. It's like it's how the rules of this game works. Why are you trying to hide how the rules work, right?
It's part of the fun, okay?
Like it's like the
I do think there
it's
was like an intent of like discovery initially. Um, so trying to make it so that it's got that nice ramp to like figuring out things on your own, but also not leaving you like stranded.
it's
It
like
seems
playing
like it's
Monopoly
worked
with
out in the
friends.
end.
How everyone has like their hidden rule or something. It's like you land on free parking, you get all the money that people lost in tax cuts or something.
Kind of. That's more like a house rule though. Like, not something prescribed by the developer in this case. But
Well,
yeah, we don't obviously have a review for Saga Frontier 2, but we do have Chow did put up a kind of a walkthrough, a guide, kind of like a bullet point minimalist guide, similar to what we did for like Suikoden. Uh so and of
Hey,
course,
hey,
like Chow is sleep deprived and
yeah.
hasn't done anything other than talk
Good
about
on you,
Review in the
Chad,
last two
because this was
days.
a shadow drop on Thursday.
And I
So
shallow drop a guide, I guess.
Yeah, so
Jesus.
I think Adam and I are at some point are planning to play through it. So that guide we'll tweak up and like make sure it covers all the new content and all that stuff. But we got it up on the site, and basically what you listen to now is effectively Chow's review of it. So no written review, but you heard his thoughts. on the
I
game.
do want to say the developer definitely know who their old fan base are, because a lot of these achievements are like it's definitely for the old sickos that play the game for sure.
That's funny.
I mean,
I love
Yeah,
I
that.
mean,
getting all the achievements in a SaGa game turns like a 20-hour game into like a 200-hour game. That might be an exaggeration, but it might not be.
like one of my favorites, like in like one like the third like scenarios of Will. This is like very early game. There's a fucking griffin in the game, and literally in the PlayStation version, if you encounter the griffin, you're literally gotta reset your game and just
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
right. And there's a trophy for killing it.
Oh
And
my
it's
god, that's funny. What the fuck?
like,
That's fucked up.
yep, they know who their sickos are, right?
Oh my god, that's a really funny achievement.
Well, thank you, Josh and Chow, for going over your thoughts and reviews of the first Berserker Khazan and the Shadow Drop of Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. Obviously, we have a lot of news this week, as we kind of teed up at the start of this podcast. But before we go into news, we do have one more. We have a few other features up on the site that I at least want to call out. We also do have a review for Atomfall. This is kind of like the Rebellion Studios Fallout-like survival game. Um, we had Scott White review this for us. I wasn't able to make it on the podcast. We did have his review up on the site. Had a few gripes with it. Didn't think it went far enough in the survival area. Doesn't have like a hunger or thirst meter. Doesn't like the way that the zones were set up. But can't speak to it directly. We do have the review up on the site. Also, we talked a little bit about the GDC previews last week. Adam was able to speak to his time at GDC. He talked a little bit about the panels that he saw, and I left the previews here that you have been putting up, James. You've written a lot since your time back from GDC. I don't know if
Yeah,
maybe there's one or two here that you like really were, wanted to talk about, really kind of left an impression, or you thought was like a really cool thing that you got to experience.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot to talk about, and we've already like spent like an hour and a half.
Yeah, if there's
Uh,
any like one key thing here, because we kind of talked about GDC in general. So just mainly something that you saw that Adam didn't, or one of your previews that you wrote that you're really excited about.
um, this wasn't necessarily specifically a GDC preview, but I did put up that preview for the 100 line because we did get a preview key for it because I had the appointment for a GDC, and it's so for some inside baseball. Usually, when it comes to Koei Tecmo, which this is not a Koei Tecmo game, when they do previews, they'll just send you a key, which is essentially just the current state of the full game on PC. And that's Koei Tecmo stuff is handled by 1PR. And apparently, 1PR, since they're also handling Aniplex and Xseed, who are the two publishers for the 100 line, the preview key they sent us was literally the same exact thing. So I'm like 20 hours into a playthrough. I've stopped playing for now because I'm waiting for like that, I guess, final like review ready patch for it to get back to it. But I'm not the one reviewing it. It's just I want to keep playing it. But I wrote up a preview about it, and I wasn't super hyped before I had a chance to really properly go hands-on with a near final version of the game. But the more I'm playing, it's like, yeah, no, this is probably going to be something pretty special if it keeps things up with both the writing and the gameplay and whatnot. So check that out, I guess. There's a bunch of other previews too, like Wu Chang, which I had a chance to play. But yeah, besides that, I did check out some other things. Like I said, I checked out Blades of Fire, which isn't really an RPG, but it has an interesting weapon crafting system, which the whole game is kind of based around, which I think makes it borderline enough for us to maybe cover. It's really interesting. Like, you should definitely read that preview because the combat is very, very different from pretty much any other action game I played, where instead of it being like a bumper combat where you use the bumpers to attack, you have face buttons. You use the face buttons, and those, what's the best way to explain it? You use the face buttons to attack, and those determine which direction you're swinging from.
Real quick, Blades of Fire is this new game announced by 505 Games and developed by Mercury Steam. Yeah, announced like a month ago. I was just adding context.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really neat. I I only played about an hour of it, which is longer than most of the previews at GDC, to be fair. But it's looking like that's going to be interesting. It's
They,
definitely
they
unlike anything
also
I've played, and they
they
also had
also
Wu
released
Ching there.
they also released a 20-minute gameplay preview gameplay video like the devs themselves for Blades of Fire not too long ago.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those games that like maybe it feels better to play than it is to watch because right now just it doesn't make a great first impression on at least the gameplay video that they released on it, and especially reflected not just for me but like just some people who are watched it as well. It's like saying, yeah, I hope they continue to like improve it, you know.
It
So maybe
definitely feels better to play than it does to watch.
okay,
But yeah, I also played about an hour of Wu Chang. The only thing I'll really say about that is it's a Souls-like. It's it's more dodge focused, and it has an interesting thing where it doesn't really have MP or anything like that. But instead, for your special attacks, your skills, your magic, you get. I don't think they're called skill points, but it's basically skill points. Every time you perfect dodge something, you basically get a blip that you can use for skills or spells, and different like stronger skills or spells require more. So it's really reactive based off of dodging and attacking, like when you have the right moment, and it's interesting. It's very interesting.
okay.
I enjoyed what I played, but it's one of those things where any Souls, like any RPG in general, but especially Souls, like it's kind of really hard to say for sure how it's going to feel in the end until you get like access to the full game and you
Yeah.
can feel the level design and how the progression works, that sort of thing. But yeah, I also checked out an indie game that we actually covered, like we're on the site, like news-wise, a while back. Steel Century Groove, which is a rhythm game RPG, and I'm not even going to begin to try and explain this. Just read that preview because it's really kind of hard to concisely explain how that game works, but it's really cool.
There's one of the giant mechs dancing,
Yes,
right? Okay,
yes,
got it. Yeah, seems very bizarre, but in a good
yeah.
way.
Yeah, so I had a lot to play. I have one more thing I need to write up a preview for, and I think I'm going to be done unless I do something for that metaphor like UI panel. But I know that like Noisy Pixel put up something for it, so it's like I don't really think there's any point for me to do it since that's already out there now.
Hmm.
So, but that was like probably the best panel that I saw at the show, and like it was just really, really fascinating in the sense that like I even had like a thread about it on my Blue Sky, so you can see like kind of the meat and potatoes of it there. But long story short, the UI team worked directly with the narrative team and the art team to basically make make the UI be like part and parcel, like the connective tissue for that game as a whole, and it's really fascinating. Like even stuff like, hey, why is the main character laying down in the user interface? And it's like, hey, if you've played the game, you can probably figure out why that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. So they also not too long ago, I think Atlas like released like an art book or game development book in Japan about like the development process of Metaphor ReFantazio, and they had like pictures of like when it was still like Project ReFantasy in it and the journey to like releasing the full game. So it's like it's a really cool like almost like look back on the development journey of that game. Now they can tell like stories about like how why it took so long in development and how just all the nooks and crannies to kind of get it to form its own identity. Like I think one of the most like interesting things that I think uh, Adam and our guest Hayes last week mentioned was that I think Hashino told like the art staff on that game like when they were developing like
Forget about
the
Persona, yeah.
exactly, yeah, like that's some really like that's some good like human insight of like how that game was formed.
So I think with that, we've kind of covered up all of the GDC coverage from Adam, what he was able to talk about last week, and James kind of able to wrap around this week. But if you go to rpgsite.com and you click on the articles link, you should be able to see all of those previews and interviews. Obviously, it won't be all from GDC at this point, but they'll be within the first couple pages if you want to read through any of those. And well, of course, if you don't follow us on socials, we also get them all linked out on Blue Sky and Twitter and all those as well. Before we go into news, primarily going into the Nintendo Direct, we do have one other feature on the site. This is another Mikhail special. He went through and covered all of the differences between the different versions of the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. We talked last week, or maybe it was the week before, how they finally brought, I think, parity to the mobile and the console versions in terms of like text options and a few bug fixes and things like that. So Mikhail has basically an article on the site. Which is the best version of the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Of course, it's kind of an SEO grab, but it kind of compares the mobile version, PC version, if you play on Steam Deck, obviously if you play on a console, uh, giving them kind of just a lowdown of what the different versions of those games are. So that'll be kind of an evergreen article that we'll have up on the site for kind of those cornerstone games. With that, here we are at hour 2 almost. Not quite, hour 1.5, going into the Nintendo Direct. So I kind of put all the headlines here in no particular order, but there's about 10 of them for a bunch of different things. I know a lot of people obviously walked away with a Nintendo Direct, as we do with any Nintendo Direct. Excited about different things. Some things we are expecting, for instance, an update on Pokemon Legends ZA. Some things that we weren't expecting, like a new remaster from Atlas. So we'll go to those two things first, and then we'll kind of go into the rest. So we were expecting this one. We got a new look at Pokemon Legends ZA. Not a release date, other than still late 2025, but kind of a primer about how this game will play. Pretty different from the first Pokemon Legends, though obviously it has like some of the same DNA. I guess the main thing here, I don't think anyone here is a huge Pokemon fan, but I know several of us here did play Arceus and mostly enjoyed it. So Pokemon Legends ZA, the big thing here that I think was the new news was kind of the ZA tournament battle, the ZA Royale, where you start at the lower rank and the lowest rank of Z, and it actually has a pretty strong focus on trainer battles, which Arceus had but didn't really focus on, and getting those all up to as a focus of the game, specifically at the night cycle, and working your way up to that. And of course, because this takes place in Lumiose City, Mega Evolutions return. There's been already some like leaks about what is like new Mega Evolutions in this game. We won't talk about that here, but they're out there. So I don't know if anyone else looked at this Pokemon Legends trailer and took anything really away from it, or if there's any kind of more or less or same excitement level for it.
I think I'm just really interested to like get my hands on like how this new battle system, quote unquote new battle system, will feel, because it's like it definitely is a different cadence from like what you see out of other Pokemon games. It looks a lot more reactive, more active, more just like energetic, I guess is the word I'm looking for in this. It's just like I don't know how I'm gonna how I'm gonna feel about this game, and maybe like I think what I think about this game is I want to see it running on the Switch too. That's what I think I want to
Yep,
see.
yep. And I kind of missed the like I forget exactly how it worked, but in Arceus you had the swift and strong like modifiers on attacks. I forget exactly how it worked, but
Yeah,
the
it's like the
system here is
styles,
like
right? What was it called? Styles
yeah.
or stances or whatever it's called. Yeah,
Yeah, but here it's like as far as I can tell, it's completely action based.
it's like
Well, it's
cooldown based.
it's menu based, but like in real time. So yeah, kind of
Xenoblade
cooldown.
based.
Yeah.
There you go. Xenoblade invented this. Yeah, and I know a lot of people. There's been, of course, people comparing, the fidelity of the city. Part of me is like, I think it looks okay, but I'm also got like that's where my expectations are calibrated for these games. Like it's not the prettiest in the world, but I think it has plenty of color, plenty of character. But yeah, like you said, Josh, maybe running on a Switch 2 at a higher frame rate or a higher resolution, it'll kind of make it sing a little better.
Yeah. I just want to know like what are the Switch 2 improvements to this game? Like if there like a Switch 2 quote unquote version that it boots up and it detects that's launching on a Switch 2, what does this game look like? How does it perform? Will it add like additional NPCs like on the screen now that it can like it's running on better hardware? Like I'm very
I thought from the
curious.
most recent Pokemon leak, which was from like October of last year or something like that, they said like very specifically it's only Switch 1 as of right then.
Not specifically RPG related, but obviously within a week we're gonna have our Switch 2 Direct, which might answer some of these questions. Maybe not the specific ones, but the general ones. But I know when they announced their digital game transfer card thing, transferring Nintendo Edition or whatever it is,
Yeah, the
like in
virtual
some of
game
the
cards.
in some of the fine text there, they said like what the limits and rules and are, and they did use the language Switch 2 edition games, like Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So clearly that's going to be, well, I won't say clearly, presumably that's going to be some sort of tagline for like Mario Kart 8 Switch 2 edition or whatever. So we'll see how that turns out, and maybe that'll apply to Pokemon Legends ZA or
Yeah.
not.
Since we're on the topic, like in general, like do you guys have anything to, like what do you guys think about like the virtual game card system that they introduced in this direct? That basically as a way to, I don't know. It's like
It's like it's like Nintendo's version of Family Steam Share, but way worse.
Worse. Yeah, at least you can like opt out. But it definitely sounds like something that it feels like they kind of had to make it, because otherwise the primary and then like non-primary thing with the current Switch system would make it a headache if you still had a Switch 1 and then got a Switch 2 and you used both. So it seems like they made it primarily for that, probably. But
yeah, I'm very interested to like hear like the use case when like families, they do have like people like their kids either have either multiple switches in the family, or like the family shares like one system between several different users. Like I'm very interested to hear like the use case of this when people get their hands on it and try it out, because like I remember Patrick Klepek asked about like, hey, what if I'm like at a friend's place and I want to like uh interact with this virtual game card system towards like my kid back at home. Can I do that? Can I transfer the game to them and like at a friend's place? And they're like, no, you have to be in physical proximity uh to that person if you want to do it. It's like, that's
It
weird.
reminds me of the original version of I hope I get these terms right. Steam Family Share before it became Family Library. Like, so it got updated within the last. It was in beta for a while, and then it got finally, I think, fully released. So Steam Family Library now works really well. Adam and I use that a lot. Steam Family Share before, it had kind of this lending thing where, Adam, you can play a game on my account, but if you do, then I can't. So it was kind of limited. But so I'm like, oh, okay, the Nintendo version is sort of like that, but still worse because it's got like this like 14-day timeout back where you have to like resend it. Like, oh, here you go, have my copy of Tears of the Kingdom. Better beat it in 14 days. And I know I'm sure there's like ways to work around, but it just seems like it's needlessly guardrailed
Yeah,
and
it
just
has that
convoluted.
14-day limit, right? Can you like re-lend it after the 14-day limit when it's up? I forgot.
yeah, I think so. But you have to be right next to each other to do it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, to re-up it or whatever.
This isn't the point, but I just want to say that the Steam Family Share now is very good. Like,
Yep.
I actually played through System Shock like a couple weeks ago, like I said, and I actually didn't realize until I was like 80% of the way through it. Oh, I'm actually borrowing this from Brian's library. I didn't even realize. I don't own this game.
I didn't realize either. It's just seamless.
Because like, oh, it's in my library. I can just play it, right? It's just in my list. You can download it. You can install it. You get achievements. It's basically looks and works exactly the same. And it's like, oh, I was just borrowing it from Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Just a day ago, I played No Case Should Remain Unsolved, and that's actually in my Steam Family Library with Colin and Kazuma.
That's pretty fun.
I
So
have
yeah,
no
digital
family
game
yet.
cards.
I have not linked up to any families on my Steam yet. I'm
You and
remote island.
Chow and Mikhail can go do that.
No. I'm part of a family program.
Darren, you have a family too? Holy shit!
Yeah, but we're not related. We're not
Well,
family.
I mean, Kazuma, Colin, and James aren't related.
Your found family. That's it.
Yeah.
Josh does not have a family.
That's right. I'm a lone soldier, baby.
Go home and be a
I
family
do.
man.
I do know that there's a pretty popular way. It always seemed kind of sketch to me, where it's like if you log in on my account on your Switch or your account on my Switch, and then we can buy one copy of the game, and then multiple people can play it at the same time on different Switches. It works normal, but it seems always kind of like hacky to me, and people are worried like, that might be going away.
Yeah,
I've never used that. I've never tried to use that. I'm sure there's a population of people that are really. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's within the rules, so I take it away. So I kind of get it, and this the solution seems very convoluted and
yeah.
bad. Well, I won't say bad. It's not out yet, but potentially bad.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
see. We'll see how it goes. I'm very interested to see like how like people write up read write ups on this thing and how it works in practice and like what are the like just takeaways from it because like when they first introduced that like my first my gut first impression was like that seems smart for like families but then I thought about it more I'm like man that seems kind of weird and restrictive.
when I was watching that little trailer, I'm like, oh, this kind of makes sense. Calling it like a digital game card, virtual game card, seems like that's a little Nintendo-ish, but I guess that's fine. But then they're like, returns in 14 days within local network, and I'm like, oh, there's just a bunch of caveats coming in
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, no.
Well, we'll see.
Hey, yeah.
All right, the second headline that I have from Nintendo Direct was one I don't think we were expecting. I don't know if this got leaked at all. I wasn't expecting this. We have a remaster of Devil Summoner Raidou Kuzunoa versus the Soulless Army, calling Raidou Remastered the Mystery of the Soulless Army. It's called Remaster, but as far as I can tell, it's basically a full up remake. I did see you talking a little bit about this, Josh, on Blue Sky.
Yeah,
Also, we sort of did expect this.
yeah,
You did? Okay.
so, yeah,
I was out of the loop.
so for yeah, this coming June 19th on what was it, PlayStation, Switch, and
And
PC. I
PC.
forgot.
Every platform.
I
Yeah.
think I think it's also on Xbox. This one
Xbox.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't see the. Okay, there I see the plan later on. Uh, later down the post, but so yeah, as Adam mentioned, we did get hints about this because there's a Steam DB listing that was like, I think it was like data mined as like when people are looking to Nocturne or whatever. I forgot.
Yeah, for some reason, it was like an update to the Nocturne remaster entity
Yeah.
on Steam DB, which was kind of weird because it's like they're not. They're like both PS2 games, but they're not connected otherwise. So,
Yeah. Aside from like the Raidou characters showing up in
oh,
Nocturne, you
true,
know.
I guess, but yeah, but they're like separate games. It's not like an expansion or anything like that. It's
Exactly.
they're
Yeah.
entirely separate games. So,
So and at the time we're like, are they like releasing like a bundle of the first two, which we thought they were gonna do like but this is like as Brian mentioned, this is only the first Raidou game that came out of PS2, the Soulless Army. It's not King Abaddon, which was the sequel, and this kind of caught me off guard at first. So I was like, I don't know about you, Adam, but like the first Raidou game on PS2 is like it's a cool game, like in terms of like atmosphere, story, OST, but like the game part of it is kind of slow and lacking. It's like almost like a prototype version
yeah,
of
it's
like what they were going for.
imagine Atlas back in the day, what they types of games they made, mostly turn-based RPGs, and this is kind of like PS2 era. Atlas is like, we're going to try an action game, and it kind of worked
It's very
out as you would
basic.
expect. Yeah, it's pretty basic, pretty janky. So
Yeah, it's like a fixed camera angle at battles. But you can only summon one demon at a time to aid you. And it was like it's a very standard. Like you have your light string, and your battle options were fairly limited at the time. So going to this Raidou Remastered, which is a smart name change to it because everyone refers to it as Raidou, and they mentioned as much at the like the extended developer interview with Yamai, who was once the director, now the producer on this game. Um, where the battle system is completely revamped in this game. It's a full 3D camera. You can have at least up to two demons, which was introduced in the sequel. Now in this game, and Raidou has just like a bunch of like extended move sets and like supers that he has access to. And there's like a bunch of like other systems where there's like an over the shoulder view of like marking enemies with his gun and then like kind of firing it off. And it seems like battles are a lot faster paced, more energetic, more. It's like I mentioned this in the staff chat, but I think it's best to look at this as like less as like a a re-release of Raidou 1 and more of like Raidou 1 with a lot of Raidou 2's
yeah,
combat systems on steroids.
yeah, they definitely took a lot of the improvements from Raidou 2 and like kind of backported them into one, and then
Yeah.
like souped it up after that.
Yeah,
So
that's very smart. That's very smart. I think that's one of the weakest aspects of Raidou 1 was its gameplay system, and putting that gameplay into this game plus more, and then and retaining that same story and characters is good because that game oozed atmosphere and very novel at the and I think it will still be novel now for people who never played these games. And a lot of just it feels like all the assets were remade from the ground up. Like there's a new lighting system. There's like new character models. But interestingly enough, like the visuals, the key art, like I don't know if like Sega has released like the artist of the new key visual because it looks very Kazuma Kaneko esque. This new key art, it retains his style. I'm like, who illustrated this? Because I don't know if it can't be Kaneko, right?
maybe Doi is getting really good at Kaneko impersonation.
I'd be impressed. If it was Doi, I'd be very impressed. Because it's very much emblematic of his style in that. And it's just really cool to see that like, hey, they're really making a push to get Raidou back onto the scene, hoping people will give this game a shot. I think people should. I think it's an excellent game that they have like this whole. I shared this with Adam. They have this like this whole scrolling list of all the improvements they made from this game from the original. It's just like a whole scrolling list of like text bubbles of like this is what we added, like full health recovery when you go to the agency. We added express smart cards. We added a dash function. We added this, and just
A lot of those additions that they list are actually stuff that was in Raidou 2.
yeah, exactly.
Like there was stuff that's like you can now heal at the detective agency. It's like that was something they added in Raidou 2. Stuff, small things
So,
like that. Like in the
yeah,
original, if that's confusing to you, in the original game, Raidou, the first Raidou, there was no place to like heal for free. Like almost in every RPG, there's like there's a place to heal, whether it's a save point or an inn that you can just spend a little bit amount of money or something. But in the original Raidou, if I'm remembering correctly, there was no easy way to heal. You had to like buy MP items and use spells or buy items and do it that way. It was kind of that's how you healed.
and then so people who don't know like the Raidou games, you work for this detective agency as the detective named Raidou. It's basically the Taisho era. So if you're familiar with Sakura Wars at all, the aesthetics of that are very much this like this in this Taisho era. There's like early automobiles roaming around, early industrialization, stuff like that. But you obviously as a supernatural detective who has the power to summon demons, you can use like demons in your investigations. So you might have to use demons to like, maybe like put like a hypnosis spell on someone to like spill the beans on something, or there might be like an underwater waterway that you need to go through, but there's water in the way of the next path forward. So you have to summon like an ice demon to freeze the ground in front of you to travel across it, for example. So it's just like it's a very mystery focused um game with an action almost like a like early form action RPG combat, but you're still going to battle arenas to fight off demons. And there's ways to recruit demons after battle, and also there's demon fusion mechanic in it, like very emblematic of the SMT series. It's just like a very different kind of game than like virtually almost any like Atlas game that has come out in terms of like it you can move your character around actively in battle. It's not turn based. There's no press turn combat system. You're taking the initiative. You're fighting alongside your demons all in real time. And just a really cool game, and I'm very interested to see like how this game um plays like just like seamless gameplay. Like I just want to see gameplay, uninterrupted gameplay, and like get a chance to play it. And and of course I think this is gonna build towards like a re-release of the second game, and I love and adore the second game. Um, so I'm really interested to see like when they get around to the second game and re-releasing that, what sorts of additions and changes they're gonna do to it, and also hopefully the sales performance and interest from the public towards Raidou, and hopefully the re-release of its sequel. Hopefully they can like, build towards like a brand new Raidou game, and like what would a brand new Raidou game look like from the ground up, um, without the limitations of the PS2 in its design. That's a really exciting prospect that hopefully they can build towards. in the future. And also, they added a lot more demons in this re-release. They added over 50 new demons that weren't
Yeah,
in
the original game actually did not have a whole lot.
Yeah,
Like it might have been one of the smallest demon rosters in any.
but there's also a handful demons that only showed up in the
Yeah.
Raidou games and one other. So there's a lot of demons that just never showed up in any other game. Just fun.
There's one other big component to Raidou we haven't talked about yet.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main characters is a talking cat.
Yep, and it's fully voiced now.
Yeah. Goto's
both
great.
in English and Japanese. Yeah, I love the cast. Yeah, but even in the original, it didn't have Japanese voice.
No, there was no voices.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see.
Kind of like
how
with
the-
Nocturne, they just added the voices, and I think Nocturne they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, they did a good job, but it's also one of those games that it was weird because it was a very atmospheric game. So for me, I felt the silent nature of it was, it added to its charm. But also, the English voice acting was totally fine too.
And this is true for any game that's silent and then adds voices. Everyone has a different imagined voice in their head of what the characters sound like, and obviously there's no way when you give them a real voice that it's going to match everyone's imagination. Just kind of how it is.
I forgot in the Nocturne Remaster, did they have a toggle voices option? Because one of the screens here is actually a toggle voices option on and off, and I don't know for the Nocturne Remaster if they had one that you could just toggle on or off, or you had to just slide the voices down.
I would assume it did,
Yeah.
because that would seem really like a short sight if it didn't.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but this is cool that this is happening. I'm so excited, to revisit this game, all prettied up, and it's great. It was one of those days that I kind of internally yelled out, going "Yeah!" when they showed it.
I don't know if you two are in this boat, but I know I saw some people say, "Hey, it's surprised that it's not a dual pack." So
Yeah.
I'd imagine it's hard to argue that if this is successful, that they won't do the second one. But I see people going Digital Devil Saga. Yeah.
Digital Devil Saga. I'm a little bit surprised this isn't a dual pack, but the fact that it is more of a remake makes that a little bit easier to swallow. If it was just like a remaster of just the Raidou 1 as it was, then it'd be that kind of feels shortchanged. But the fact that it looks, at least significant parts of the game are remade entirely, okay, that's easier to swallow. Digital Devil Saga, I would love to see a re-release of that, but that game, even more so than Raidou. Raidou is really two separate games. It is. Digital Devil Saga kind of does feel like one game split into two in ways.
Yes.
So that game, it would make much more sense. That game really should consider, if they ever re-release it, just a combined version somehow.
You heard it here first, or from RPG's side. Digital Devil Saga is going to be a combined remaster.
They should consider that.
Definitely 10,000% confirmed. We didn't say anything except Adam. That's it. But I'm with you, Adam. That this Raidou remaster not being a dual pack, it kind of shocked me at first that it wasn't a dual pack, but it being significantly more of a remake than a remaster makes it easier pill to swallow. Even though the price of this is still $50, that's still a higher price point than I would like, but I kind of get it, borderline get it. Because it does look like they did
the budget price now.
They did put in the work to kind of just feels like they built the game from the ground up.
The trailer that the Nintendo Direct actually opened with, this is one we were expecting. We got a new trailer for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. Obviously, we had the Dragon Quest 3 remake last year, and before it was released, we already knew that Dragon Quest 1 and 2 were coming this year. So this is just kind of a reminder that it's coming this year. We got a new trailer showing off all the locations and events. The key thing here, and I think I'll have to hand off to someone who's played Dragon Quest, I think 2, is that they tease this new character at the very end. So I don't know what her significance is. I guess Dragon Quest 2 normally had only 3 party members, and now this might be a 4th. I don't know how you guys interpreted this mysterious character. And
I'm as lost as everyone else. Where it's definitely a new character in Dragon Quest 2 that I do not remember at all, and they make an emphasis that they're new. I have no idea what else it is beyond that. It caught me off guard. I was more so surprised that they kept the one party member for Dragon Quest 1, which is good. I like that solo adventure, but I'm like, do they have the guts to keep it solo? because Dragon Quest One is such a it is it. I'll be frank, it is a very very basic JRPG by modern, very basic, very straightforward. Um, so I'm interested to see I'm like I was hoping that they would keep the solo party member in Dragon Quest One HD 2D remake, and they're sticking to that. But for Dragon Quest Two to add like a brand new one, that's like weird. For me, I was like, oh, that's cool, but I don't know why you do it. That's cool that they did it. I guess I have no
I
idea.
saw some people joking, Atlas New Girl syndrome.
When I saw her key art when they went to the key art after that, like her key art like it reminded me of Bravely Default. I'm like, oh, it's a Bravely
Yeah, I was gonna
Default
say
character.
it looks Bravely or maybe Octopathy
Yeah,
in that art style.
but sure. I mean, there's still it's cool to see first gameplay like in-game footage of these games running in action and seeing what they're gonna do. You know, Dragon Quest 3 HD remake was awesome, and I'm very much looking forward to see how they really do this Pac-Man because I don't know what they will add to them because both of these games, especially one, like I said, just very, very straightforward, basic JRPG by today's standards, to the point that maybe people will feel like it's too basic, you know?
Well, it's from when? 1986?
Yeah, it's very much like it was
Yeah,
like your first it was a very first experimental design. Of course it was basic back then because it was the
yeah.
kind of the pioneer of its genre.
Mhm. And I kinda hope they keep it, I hope they don't do too much
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've never played the original, but I kinda wanna be like I don't wanna play like, "Oh, we had to put a bunch of sugar in this to make it, palatable to the modern taste." Like, no, I kinda want it even if it's not, like, faithful completely, but, like, at least give you the same flavor. That's what I'm
Right.
hoping for,
Mhm.
even if the result is basic.
Yeah, I can see.
We have the announcement of a new entry in the AI, the Somnium files called "No Sleep for Kaname Date." So again,
Absolutely
I'm gonna have to
banger
pivot to
title. I love it. I love the title
yeah.
so much.
So first of all, remind me, is it AI or is it just I?
Could go
I
either way. Yeah,
It go either
like
way
a lot of people call it AI. They call it I. It's
because I
either
remember in
way.
the trailer they said I, but
Mhm.
remind me, the Somnium files was a new IP. It wasn't connected to an existing franchise, so this is just a follow up from that.
it's an
Um,
interquel between 1 and 2.
yeah.
And it's
So
called
Oh,
No
there's a
Sleep for
two. Okay.
Kaname Date because it's like literally a day after the first game, so he literally did not get a chance to sleep.
yeah, so it is more of a direct follow up from the first game, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, but
It's
like
the after
as you guys
years.
mentioned, yeah, yes.
Although hopefully good.
Yeah, this was a fun surprise. It seems to be a smaller scoped game from everything that's been said about it. And I think one of the key takeaways that people notice is that Uchikoshi is more as a scenario supervisor on this. He's not the direct writer or scenario writer in this entry. It's Kazuya Yamada this time around. So I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. By the way, I think it's totally fine. That staff change up is being made. Um, it is if you played the first game, you'll recognize a lot of familiar faces. Um, Coming back for this game, it's very much like a new entry for people who've played the first game, like very much. I think it's if you like I love Kaname Date, man. He's that guy. I'm sorry, but he's that guy. He's such a goof. He tries to be serious, but he's such a goof, you know? Um
Tee it up
I
for me who has not played the original game and doesn't really know much about it. Is he just a supporting member in the original game, and now he's, like, in the protagonist role,
No,
or
he
how
was
is
the
it?
protagonist of the first game. He was the main
Oh,
character.
he's in both. Okay, okay.
Yeah, there's a different character who was he's more of a supporting role in the second entry. And Mizuki was the main character along with a new character the second game. So Kaname Date is a guy who's an investigator who takes on like these sort of supernatural cases, but he's very much an everyday dude. He loves looking at porno mags. He makes a lot of like very, very lighthearted, like perverted jokes. But he's like kind of like an everyday guy that kind of is like just he just wants to sleep, man. He just wants to get things shit done, and he doesn't really he just wants to. He's like a very laid back dude. I don't know how else to describe him. He's like a very everyday man stuck in stupid circumstances and makes
He just wants to
most
clock
out of
out
it.
and go home.
So
Exactly.
he's not like
you
a
know?
shonen protagonist with a hero
No,
complex or things like that.
no. um. So and this game, one of the new features they're introducing is like this escape element, where like I guess there's like more escape room type scenarios, which is very much like it's kind of starting to lean more to like the zero escape gameplay premise of like you'll be stuck at like certain spaces and you'll have to solve puzzles to get out of like these locked spaces. Where in the other two games, like you're kind of working through a mystery or puzzle to like solve it, like in these gameplay spaces, but it's not necessarily like an escape room sort of gameplay setup, if that makes sense. So you know, there's if people like I don't know, like a lot of people were divisive on the second one, so I'm interested to see how this fares because I think it seems there's more motion for the first AI Somnium files that than there was the second. Where the second one definitely took liberties, let's say, of like what people liked about the first.
What's the second one called? I completely blanked. There was a second one.
Nirvana
Nirvana.
Initiative.
Yeah,
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that. I completely passed me by. It is not in my field of view. So I'm glad there's
yeah,
other people that can speak
yeah,
to it.
yeah. So it's that's cool. I forgot if the previous Somnium Files games released on PlayStation and Xbox because this one's only coming to PC and Switch at the moment.
So the original Eye of the Somnium Files, I believe, was on PlayStation. It did not sell well on PlayStation at all, but
Oh,
Nirvana
okay.
Initiative was on PlayStation and Xbox in addition to Switch and PC.
Mhm.
But it seemed, as far as I can tell, Switch and PC have been the platforms that have sold the best. So, I mean, I guess they just figured no reason to really put it on anything else. If, like, realistically, if you're into visual novels or like adventure games like this, you own a Switch or a PC, and if you have a PC, you can play this because it's not a high spec game. It
Yeah,
runs on the Switch. So.
and you know, Steam Deck is in the equation now too, and the previous
Yeah,
version
I played Nirvana Initiative day one on Steam Deck. So yeah.
yeah. Mhm. So you know, it's cool to see that Somnium Files gets another entry, continues to thrive. These are very lovable characters, and I love always revisiting this cast, especially my guy Kaname Date.
Yep.
A few other announcements from the Nintendo Direct. We got the announcement of Super Robot Wars Y. And remind me, Josh, this only appeared on the Japanese one, or did this eventually appear on the English one?
It was
Only
only
on
on
the
the
Japanese
Japanese
one.
one.
Yeah, this is like basically in the West is like a surprise announcement out of nowhere, like an announcement trailer just brought up out of nowhere,
Mhm.
stuff like that. So
And this is a
you
new
know,
title, completely announcement here.
yes, completely new title. It is not an OG entry. It's a mainline entry with licensed IPs again. Um, they have G Gundam in it, and they're bringing back Majestic Prince, Battler, and Dunbine. So they didn't reveal the full list of series here, but some of the new series that they're debuting here is Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury in it, but they specified season one only on this one. So this has a lot of speculation because obviously it takes years now to develop one of these games, right? So I believe this game like started development around 2022. Um, so not all the most recent mecha anime that just aired, like Bravern, for example,
I think
will
that's
get
what people need to
representation.
expect from Super Robot Wars games. Don't
Yeah,
expect whatever it's currently airing to be on the game, right? These are made ahead of time.
yeah, these are way ahead
But
of time.
but I
Yeah,
think one of the things, like, when my friend posted, like, when he saw this trailer, it's like the first thing he sent a message to me is like, "Oh, no original Gundam. Unreal got canceled." It's like,
yeah, that was an interesting thing where they a lot of like the series mainstays, like the old getters, like Armageddon, for example, was you know, not in this game, but the most recent Getter Robo arc, it's called Getter Robo arc, the show, that did make the cut in this one, but not like like the old Getter series. But for this one, like they don't have the original UC Gundam or like Shark's counterattack or anything. They have G Gundam probably because it's celebrating I think it's 30th anniversary.
Yeah, they announced some weird sequel or something. I
Yeah,
don't
it's like
know.
it's like a novel sequel. So there's no animation for it, but there's like a web novel or something in it. But I assume they brought back G Gundam for this to celebrate its anniversary, and which from Mercury is like that the new popular mainline entry at the time. So there's speculation that like if they're gonna add season 2, maybe there's like a sequel already in development to like a Super Robot Wars Y2 or a DLC or something like that. We don't know. They just announced that Witch from Mercury season 1 specifically, one of the new series. They also one of the ones that caught me off guard is we're getting a Macross representation here with Macross Delta, which is the and they call it Macross Delta Passionate Valkyrie because that's the first compilation film for Macross Delta because there was a sequel film as well for it. So that's coming in, but it's only like Witch from Mercury season 1, kind of like the first half of that story coming in this game. So we don't know once again if there's going to be any follow up to this game that will have the later like season 2 of Witch from Mercury or the sequel film Macross Delta in it. What makes Macross Delta's inclusion really interesting is that for many, 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 many years, as people who in this space know, Macross in the West was not a thing because of a certain
Licensing
company.
issues.
Yeah, licensing issues. I was gonna say I will not name them because I already forgot their name. But they were the ones
Harmony
who like
Gold. Harmony
Harmony
Gold.
Gold, yes. Uh, who like kind of bastardized that series with Robotech. Some people like Robotech, and that's fine. But they definitely that
But it's like
Robotech.
3 other series combined together, you know?
Yeah, it's a long. They were pretty much gatekeeping Macross in the West, that IP, because they made it a Robotech. And they settled it with like I think it's called like Big Box or something like that. It's like another company. They settled this like maybe about 2 to 3 years ago, where uh Macross can finally have representation in the West. The vast majority of it. It's like the only ones that Harmony Gold retained is like the very first Macross series, I believe, and like an OVA of the original. And I think those are the only ones that
I'm still really
Harmony
confused
Gold.
how their licensing works because I see like if you try to buy Macross, like the original Macross, there's like an ADV films version that you could buy with the original like story or with uncut or whatever, and then it's like now Disney is streaming this. It's like
Yeah, I
all
don't.
the new.
It's a weird one, man. Like but from what I understand, it's like the original Macross and plus like Do You Remember Love are the ones that Harmony Gold retains, but everything else is like is off the hook. Aside from those, so that's why you have like the Western release of that Macross game, like that shmup that came
Bin
out from
base
that
gone.
they yeah that was published from Bushiroad, but it got like every other series is represented in that, but in the Western version except Minmay, which was from the original Macross, because Harmony Gold I think still retains those rights. It's still very bizarre on that end, but at least every other Macross besides that is at least able to be released normally in the West now. So that's what's pretty exciting now is like, hey, Macross finally has representation in a official mainline SRW game getting officially released in the West, and that's cool. It's very it's like very bizarre to see as a long time fan of the series and someone who is fairly knowledgeable about like how the mecha licensing the things work behind the scenes in that regard. Which is it's one of those things like you would never think it's like almost a dream come true. You'd never think it would happen, right? So that's kind of like those key series. Like the key new players in this one is Witch from Mercury season 1, Macross Delta, and Get a Robo Arc. All the other ones that they've announced are they've been in the series before, which is cool. But and they haven't announced the full roster yet, so it's more to come. We don't know the full series, so we know we have Combattler, 5 or V. I forgot what people call it. Dunbine, Majestic Prince, which is cool to see. I really like Majestic Prince. And the Code Geass, the Lelouch the Resurrection film. Those are the other ones that they showed off in the trailer.
Do
So
you
this
think if they
announced
make a second one, do you think they will include G cracks or
G Quacks, the new one. I mean, it hasn't even aired yet. There's no way it's going to be included at the moment because it hasn't even
I
aired
know,
yet.
but by the time they make a Y2, do you think they will
No
have G
way.
cracks?
unless Y2 is like 7 years away. No way, it's way too early. If they were to make like Y2, it depends on like when that development has started for that. Like if they develop that starting now, there's no way G Quacks would be in it. Maybe Bravern, recent stuff like Bravern might be for grabs in season 2 of Witch for Mercury, of course. But it's way too soon to think about G Quacks, the yet to air next mainline Gundam. It's way too soon.
Oh, you
Eventually,
get
it
a
might
sneak
get into
peek if you go in
SRW,
theaters. You get a
but
sneak peek.
10 years from now, in the new, let's say there's a new SRW entry, mainline entry, 10 years from now, it'll probably be in that. So I'm very interested to see what other series is coming. They also showed off the original main characters and the original mecha um coming into this game. They all look cool. I'm very interested to learn more. Coming to PS5, Switch, and PC sometime this year. Worldwide, simultaneously. This is also really cool because it's now coming to PlayStation 5 and Switch worldwide simultaneously in the West, because Super World Wars 30, as you guys can recall, that was only released in the West officially through PC. No console versions for that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. This is a awesome announcement. I can't wait. I can't wait.
The last set of games from the Nintendo Direct are kind of in that social farm sim RPG light kind of realm. We have Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar is releasing on August 28th. Sorry, 27th. I guess this is the remaster of a Nintendo DS game.
Yeah. Or a remake, I guess.
Oh yeah, remake, not remaster. Sorry. Did you have experience with the DS game, James?
No, the only Story of Seasons game I played really growing up was Mineral Town on the Game Boy Advance. So
Mhm.
that's the only one I've really had experience with. It was just one of those things where I had my fill, and it's like, I'm not really. I played Rune Factory. That was a good time, but
Mhm.
I wasn't one of the.
No judgment rendered.
Am
Yeah.
I a Harvest Moon expert if I say I only played the N64 one and the PlayStation one?
No, that doesn't
Rip.
count. This one I know a lot of people, kind of in my IRL friend circle, are excited about. Witchbrook, basically people who are in that, that I replay Stardew every year sort of realm. Like this
I
is obviously coming from
remember
Chucklefish.
when Witchbrook was announced. I want to say I was still in high school.
Yeah, so teeing this up a little bit, Witchbrook from Chucklefish, kind of the Stardew Valley, but takes place in a witch academy. Same like similar sort of like perspective. Though I guess it's more isometric than Stardew is, which is more straight down. Um, has been in development a long time, and Chucklefish takes their time to make these things. Uh, though I guess I keep saying Stardew for Chucklefish, where that's technically true, but that's Concerned Ape. Once they split apart. So sorry for getting that kind of convoluted. But this is from Chucklefish straight up. Witchbrook has been in development for a while, and it launches this winter for Switch, Xbox, and PC.
Whatever
So
happened
this
to
is the first
Haunted
time.
Chocolatier?
That's what Concerned Ape is still working on.
Yeah, he's still working on it. I think
Mhm.
I think the last thing he said was he's not like forcing himself to get it done ASAP because he doesn't want to get burnt out, which is why actually there's been more updates to Stardew Valley past what he said would be the final update, because he basically just goes back to it when he feels like he's getting burnt out on Haunted Chocolatier, which is actually kind of similar to what that one blog post Local Thunk put out about his development cycle for Balatro, where it was kind of a similar thing where he pretty much said, look, if you're getting burnt out, do something else. Do something else. You don't want to push through it because it's just going to cause problems down the line. So, and I guess
You're not going to be proud of what you made. It's not going to have your whole heart in it. All that stuff.
also, to be blunt, with Concerned Ape, there's a very real chance that dude is legitimately a billionaire based off of all the merch sales, the symphonies, and all the actual game sales of like Stardew Valley. So it's like he doesn't have to rush at all.
Mm. But yeah, no, Witchbrook has kind of been like, if you follow any of those like what is it? Not humble games. There's like the cozy
Chucklefish.
game stream.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, cozy game, yeah.
Wholesome?
yeah, like the Wholesome, that's it. Yeah, the Wholesome Directs. If you follow those, like Wholesome Direct, Cozy Game Streams, Humble Games, like those sorts of things, this is always kind of like in their most anticipated. Where's Witchbrook? Because it seems so neat and it's a really fun idea. Um, so to say that it's coming out this winter is not, I think, what people expected. And get a platform that a Nintendo Direct, even like even better.
Completely unrelated, but the most recent sales number we got for Stardew Valley was it has sold over 41 million copies. So that joke that he might be a billionaire is not actually a joke, because there's like all the merchant stuff too. So it's like, oh god.
Mm-hmm. And there was also a new trailer for Fantasy Life I, the Girl Who Steals Time, coming out May.
I can't believe they felt comfortable showing some of that trailer with how bad
the Switch footage. Oh man,
yeah, it's like, oh man,
4 to 5 FPS gaming, baby, or so bad. That was crazy.
I see that. Yeah.
The craziest thing about that is that they did that, and it's like that game is going to be, well, I mean, that game's going to be cross-play, so it's like, is there going to be desyncs if you're playing with a fucking Switch player online?
I have no clue. I remember when this game was like Switch exclusive for the longest time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it seemed like Nintendo was actually going to be helping with it seemed like Nintendo was going to be helping with publishing assistance or something like that.
Who knows? Maybe they just gave up optimizing it when they heard the Switch 2 is coming.
Switch 2 will save us. Hey, I don't blame developers who have that mindset right now. It's like, Switch 2 will save us.
And that kind of covers it for the Nintendo Direct. Obviously, not the last Nintendo Direct for the Switch, but the last one prior to the Switch 2 releasing. Of course, we have a completely new Direct that we'll talk about next week, all for the Switch 2. So clearly a console that's kind of on its way out, has a few bangers, still slated. Obviously, not an RPG news, but one, I guess the headliner was the Metroid Prime 4 trailer was kind of like the big thing for this one. I forget though, did they announce a release date for that, or is it just like fall?
They didn't even give a season for it. What's probably going to be
fall.
Probably what's going to happen is they're waiting for the Switch 2 presentation to announce the actual release date, because there's no way in hell that's not like cross-gen day and date with Switch 2.
So to finish out this podcast, we'll go through some of the rest of the news. Not a ton, but one kind of big headline here to kind of lead us into the back end of this podcast is that NIS America has announced that they will be releasing the global version of Kaino Kaseki, titled The Legends of Heroes: Trails Beyond the Horizon, this fall. The Mad Lads did it. We thought it might be this fall, but probably next year. Nope, it's this fall. So they released Daybreak 2 in the winter, late winter. We've got May timeframe. We have is it May for the first chapter?
No, first chapter we don't have a release date.
Some pre-orders showed September.
It's probably September, because that is when Falcom always releases their titles each year. So it's probably like September 25th or 26th. That is when they release their games.
And Trails Beyond the Horizon will be like back to back, bang bang.
Well, and also remember that NIS America is not involved with the first chapter remake.
Right. I'm just speaking from the perspective of a Western player, regardless of publisher.
Can you believe it? They have both games being released around September, and they asked me to write both of the guides.
Yeah, okay, come on, Joe. I need the guide. I can't play this without the guide.
I need to get all the chests.
How am I supposed to play my Trails game without a guide?
Yeah.
There
you You know what? Like, just shout outs to fucking the Lisa crew working on these games, man. That's
I can't believe we're caught up. I thought this was a fever dream.
We're going to be caught. We're going to be caught up. The other thing that's crazy is that, like, I mentioned it like before, that they were like, I was told they were trying to get it out this year.
Yeah.
But the other half of that is that they were hoping that if they could get it out this year, that they would try and get the next mainline Trails game day and date.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy, but if you think about it, it's like Kai 2's not coming out this year in Japan.
Mhm.
And like I actually was talking to Fonsuke over on Blue Sky, and he said that he talked with some of the Falcom guys at Taipei Gaming Show, the most recent one. They said that there's some things on Falcom's end they need to do in order to facilitate day and date releases. And one of those things is making sure that the scripts are done in like ahead of time.
Yeah.
Well, if the script is done this year for Kai 2 and Kai 2 comes out next year, that might be enough time for Nisa to be able to actually pull it off.
It'd be crazy.
We might like once Kai comes out in English or Trails Beyond the Horizon comes out, it might finally be over. We might finally not have to wait a year minimum.
So what is the Falcom release for this year? Obviously, first chapter, because that's
first chapter. That's it
on the Japan
that
side.
Is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it just first chapter? When's
Proud Nordics? Probably this year too. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. But yeah, we'll be in that. Even if it's not day and date for Kai 2, like if it's like the old time where it was, the early 2010s, late aughts, where it was like a month or two. Like you would import to get your little head start. And like even like Nier Automata, I remember there was like a two week spread between two release dates.
I remember I played Nier Automata like imported, and there was actually some people that like in the games press at that time that were DMing me on Twitter being like, dude, why are you tweeting about it? You're breaking bargains. Like, no, I'm not.
No, I just bought the game and I'm just playing it, dude.
I did the exact same thing. I bought Nier imported, beat the entire game, and everyone's like
I think the most challenging thing about that game is like reviewing it, like adhering to like the embargo of like, hey, you can talk about only like the 2B playthrough and not any other characters you play through that. It's like fuck.
I think the dumbest thing is they never gave out any review codes until the last 3 days. I don't know if it's Square just not having faith in the product during that time.
I mean, they probably did.
Yeah, of course. Like think about the time and place of that game. No one knew that Nier Automata was going to be a hit.
I knew it was going to be a hit. I'm the only guy that has a hit.
Chow knew.
Yeah, okay, Chow.
I swear to God, I spent $900 on merchandises before the game even came out. Okay, I bought every limited edition I can think of.
I still remember the E3 that like Square Enix had their little like E3 presentation thing, not proper presentation, but stream where they announced it. I was like the only person in that newsroom that like popped off when it got announced, and
yeah, I mean,
nobody gave
us down this
nobody gave a shit about Nier before like Automata came out. Like there were sickos like some of us in this voice call, but it's like we were the exception rather than the rule.
We are the sickos.
Yeah, I definitely imported it when I saw the trailer. I did everything.
By and large, I'm not saying that no one knew. Like, of course,
I know, but I'm just saying, like during that time, I believe that Square just didn't believe this product would sell.
Of course, it's totally understandable why they didn't think it was going to pop off. Of course not. It is one of the it is still remains one of the biggest surprises in the game industry in terms of like how successful that game was.
Anyway, speaking of like localization delays, I know it's a long time ago now, but like Final Fantasy 13 back then, even in the HD era, it was like a 3-month wait.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
it took a long time to get this where we are right now. It took a long time for everyone.
So even if Kai 2 has like a few month delay, like obviously we hope for day and date, but even if it's like within a year, within a half year, we'll have to see. But obviously we're hoping for that day and date. But it's exciting to know that we'll be playing Kaino Kaseki. And it says this fall. That's the release date for Beyond the Horizon.
It's going to be crazy that this December, Kai 2 is going to be properly announced. It's going to be properly announced, and the Western players are going to be able to see the trailer and not spoil themselves.
It's one of those things of like, in order to not get spoiled of Kai 2's trailer, you need to get this game done before that investor call for Falcom. I will warn you right now. I'm sorry
for people. That's a long game.
Yeah. I'm sorry, people. I will warn you that like
it might be the longest game in the series. It might be the longest game in the series. It might.
It's like inherently going to be spoilers. I hope people enjoyed the finale of Horizon. I think Horizon has like one of the most interesting finales of the series, and I'm not underselling it too. I'm not.
It's a really. I know some people have been pissed off about the ending, but it's like the thing about like what makes like Horizon so good is that you kind of have a feeling that things are going to head somewhere in that direction from early on. There's like an uneasiness through the playthrough as you're going through it, and then like when the shoe drops, it's like it happens all at once, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's I'm very interested to hear from people who play through it and get to the end and be like, so what do you think? Well, what do you think? You know?
Now, Western players, once you play this in October, November, whenever it comes out, just remember when you hit that like ending, and you see how things shake out. There's a couple of people in this voice call that have been that will have been waiting over a year for that follow up and realize you've had it good.
We were blissfully ignorant.
No, I mean, yeah, but it's still we'll see what how it goes. But yeah, once again, listen, good job, Nisa. Like, good fucking job. Like, this has not been an easy road. Multiple years. It's been a challenge every step of the process for them. So it's good that they stuck with it and continue to
also
march on.
I know that it's like kind of what's the best way of putting this. I also want to give an extra shout out to everyone that was at the Geofront that worked on the Zero Nature fan translations, because a lot of those people are NISA employees now.
Yeah.
They've been working on like the series translation since at least like Reverie. So like not just like congratulations to NISA, but congratulations to the folks at Geofront that are Falcom USA now. Seriously, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember sitting in this same podcast talking about like, was it I think Kuro, I hope I get my timeline right. I think Kuro no Kiseki had just come out or was just about to, but we learned of the official publishing of the Crossbell games, and I was like, is this the right choice to spend time on the Crossbell games? And I think the answer is yes, like very clearly based on how integral those came to the series as a whole. And like, yes, it meant that we had to do a lot of work. I say we, the publishers, Nice America, and of course also like the team at the Geofront that now comprises Nice America took the time to do that so that Western players have the full gamut of games, and they can go into Kai, and they can go into Kai 2 when it's announced with on a level playing field. So it's crazy kind of how quickly it feels to me that it all kind of came together, even though it did like take
4 years.
But definitely this year, this is the year of like Falcom's Western presence. Yeah, Trails Through Daybreak 2. You have the Trails in the Sky first chapter remake. You have the East versus Trails official localization.
Yeah, Refint games there.
Yeah, and then now you have Trails Beyond the Horizon. Just a monumental year for Falcom in the West.
I really feel it. I really think that first chapter is going to be Falcom's blowout game. I think
so.
It feels like it really does feel like that. If this isn't it, nothing will do it, because it has everything going for it. Everything going for it.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Except possibly the Western publisher.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We trust Gung Ho.
Exactly. Like
just Adam, you just mean as an unknown kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a complete unknown, but like as a relative unknown.
Yeah, I hope the PC port is good for it.
I mean, it's internal Falcom doing it this time, so we literally have no fucking clue.
Yep. It is Pandora's box.
Oh god, that means that Kai 2 is probably going to be an internal Falcom port too. Ugh.
I wonder. I hope they don't ditch Durante after this. I hope not. That'd be a big loss,
Yeah.
That also means that Durante could go do other projects too, and Grace is fucking.
I'm pretty sure that NIS America has been paying Studio PH3's bills for the last 3 years at minimum, because they don't do anything else.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just like, what does PH3 do? In the hopefully in the unlikely instance that PH3 and Nisa part ways, on this whole deal. It's cool that PH3 would be able to do other stuff, but what do they do then? What other games are they able to grace their presence with? Because like we always say, they are unmatched when it comes to their expertise in porting these
Mhm.
games to PC.
Koei Tecmo should call.
Koei
Yeah.
Tecmo, Bandai Namco. Hey, Bandai Namco, why did you call it PH3 for Bleach, huh? Where was we needed PH3 for Bleach PC?
It's still crazy to me how apparently a bunch of people have been having issues with Atelier Yumia on PC, and I literally did not have a single issue. Not a single
Yeah,
issue.
I've definitely had some friends that like they booted up. They have like good rigs. They booted up even the demo of Yumia, and they're like, "This runs like shit," and then they didn't. They're like, "Well, I'll check in on this at some other time."
One kind of semi-gaming related piece of news from this, I guess this is actually technically Nintendo Direct related in a way. The capstone of the Nintendo Direct, oddly enough, was the announcements of the Nintendo Today mobile app, which, okay,
Uh,
interesting
I,
enough. They brought
I,
Miyamoto out to talk about this, which is, I guess, like a daily, I don't know, daily? I've not downloaded this app. Like, just basically a newsletter, only in app form that you can subscribe to
it is
if
a
you have a
fuck Twitter
Nintendo
app.
account.
The Nintendo's version of fuck Twitter app.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it
they don't
it
have a
it
blue sky, right?
it,
So
it, it feels like bittersweet knowing that Miyamoto hates Elon Musk as much as the rest of us.
yeah, but I guess the one of the first things announced through this app, because it was like shadow dropped, or can you say shadow drop for an app? Is the announcement of a date for a live action Legend of Zelda movie planned to be premiering on March 26th, 2027. So in typical fashion for these film announcements, they've got their ducks in a row and they know exactly when it's going to release in 2 years.
All right, who's playing Link? Don't say
I hope
Chris
they get
Pratt.
some. I hope not. I, I guess, like, obviously for like the actors, actresses, like I hope they go with younger casts, like 14 to 17.
Tom Holland. Link.
It's
I don't
a
know.
little, but I guess I saw this. Should Link speak? Should they somehow frame the movie where the Link doesn't have to speak?
I don't know
I'm
if they can
leaning
do it.
yes.
I mean,
I don't
I
know.
hope they do. I hope they do. That'd be awesome. But it'd be novel. That's why. But they're definitely not gonna make Link not
Yeah,
speak.
Link's. Yeah, they're not
All
gonna make
right.
Link not speak.
Question for you: should Link be British?
No, I hope not.
No.
Like to me, like the Tolkien elf, which obviously that's a lot of Peter Jackson's interpretation of the Tolkien elf, which is not the same. Like I don't know, I'd get like genre confusion there.
I'm
I don't
confused.
know. I don't know what I want. Like I don't think I just want this in general.
I
I
love
don't want this.
that. uh, we can't make Link British. All right, it's just gonna confuse our viewers. When he speaks, it's
Maybe
gonna make everyone go,
what if
"What the
what
fuck?"
if they just cast, a Japanese actor? Like they
Mhm.
should just do that.
Well, the thing is Zelda's like voice in English. They went with like a British
That's
type.
true. That's
So
true. For the localization, they went with a British actor.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what I want from this movie. I have no idea what you have to do to make a Zelda movie good or bad.
I will
I just have
save
no
the Hyrule
idea.
Kingdom. Uh, um, yeah, it's a long ways away. So you have a lot of time to think about it. 2020, March 2027 is from where we're sitting now, a billion years away. So you have a lot of time to think about it.
Nothing will happen between now and then.
Uh,
The
yeah,
the
look at that.
yeah. We'll all still be here and alive, hopefully.
That we're all crossing our fingers and toes for that one.
Yep. A few smaller updates here before we go to like release date rundowns. This one's kind of a little bit out of nowhere. 10 years on, Pillars of Eternity got a new kind of update for fixing a lot of like achievements and bugs and video and audio enhancements. And in addition to the update that has already released for Pillars of Eternity, they've announced that they're adding a turn-based mode later this year. So it's kind of interesting because I don't remember the full history, but the as a kind of a callback to the Infinity Engine games, Pillars of Eternity was released with real time with pause, very classic Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Now, of course, since then, turn-based has been more in vogue. Obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 went turn-based. The Pathfinder games and Rogue Trader are turn-based. You'd have games like, not quite the same genre, but games like Wasteland 3 turn-based. And then Deadfire, I think, eventually got turn-based backported into it. Oh, I misspoke. Turn-based was also added back into Pathfinder, but and it did end up supporting it. But Pillars of Eternity 1 was the odd man out to my recollection of all those dates about what things launched with turn-based and got turn-based added later, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like one of those. It's like cool, but why? But also, if you want to like put it on par with what you've been doing with the others and add like retroactively adding turn based, then it also makes sense on that front. I
Well,
mean, it's
I remember I've talked about this on the podcast
yeah,
before. There's a fight in, I believe it's Deadfire, where it has a turn-based mode optional. Um, and then, oh damn it, I don't. My memory sucks. It was either Deadfire or one of the Pathfinder games where you could play it in either mode. But then there was a gimmick fight where you had to play it in turn-based. And I remember the fight, apparently not clearly well enough. I don't remember what game it was from. That it didn't work very well because a game with real time with pause is so much faster that you have to like recrunch all the numbers to make it work in turn-based. Otherwise, it's just way too slow. Because in real time with pause, if you've got 8 enemies on the screen and they all have to be defeated, you can just kind of buff up your characters and let them go to town. Where if it's turn-based, you got to meticulously slog through them. So I only bring this up like if they're going to add turn-based as an option in Pillars, I'm curious what they're going to do with the balancing.
yeah,
Uh, to make it so that like you could turn-based your way through this, or you could just put it on easy in real time with pause and let the characters just go. It'll be a lot faster. But really cool that a game that's 10 years young is still getting pretty major support like that. And of course, it means that I know there is a small dozens of us that are really asking for Pillars 3, not for Avowed, for Pillars 3, or at least for Obsidian to support kind of like this classic style of RPG in some fashion. So the fact that they're just still doing it on their legacy titles maybe cracks a window open that they can work on a classic style Fallout or maybe a Pillars 3 or um, any number of things kind of in that space. So hopefully that's something that Microsoft is interested in. Small one here, Kingdom Come Deliverance II, obviously released earlier this year in January. Sorry, early February, is now available on GOG. And the quest, the Lion's Crest, that was originally a pre-order bonus, you can now get as DLC. Few trailers. We got a new trailer for Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, just the third character trailer. So we had Gustav and Mai over the last month. So this newest trailer focuses on Lune, who is the mage of the party.
hell yeah, mages.
Mages are good.
I admit I'm not watching these trailers 'cause
Uh,
I'm like already interested in the game. Like I'll
Me
just be
too.
I'll just be introduced to the characters as they're introduced in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already gonna play the game. You've already sold me on the
yeah,
game. I'm gonna play your game. I don't need to see anything else. Maybe like a demo and
yeah.
save transfer.
hmm we got a new trailer for Mandragora: Whispers of the Witch Tree. This is the releasing actually just not too long, in about 3 weeks. Kind of like the 2.5D Souls like. The one that they added the subtitle to, originally was just called Mandragora.
Yeah,
Do
I
I have
think
that right?
Adam got to see this recently
Yeah, I
too.
played it at
Also,
GDC.
Mhm,
yeah,
mm.
It's definitely more 2D Souls like than I thought. I was just thinking, oh, Metroidvania with some RPG type elements. Like, oh no, this is definitely Souls.
in the end, everything was the Souls.
Yep.
Return to Souls.
I mean, it literally has, you pick up your currency EXP money and you die, you drop it, you gotta go pick it up and all that.
Yep.
So
hmm
One sales update. That's the Atelier Yumia has shipped over 30,000 units worldwide. That's of
300,000.
course, yeah.
30,000.
Sorry, why did I say 30,000? 300,000 units worldwide, and of course that's within a few weeks from launch, less than 2 weeks, I guess. And it's the fastest selling Atelier game. So if we were wondering about if the series would cool off after Ryza with a shift to a new protagonist, new gameplay style, seems not. I am always a little bit wary about fastest selling. I feel like that's easy to like if you look at this window of time from the launch, you just have to find at one point where the slope is the steepest of that to get that fastest selling moniker, because fastest selling in first week versus fastest selling
Yeah,
in
I mean
first 2
that's
days.
yeah, but they love doing this.
But
Like
still,
yeah,
but still, it's good news. It's
yeah,
good news more than it is bad news, and the
yeah.
fact that Yumia is doing well for Gust and Koei Tecmo. A few dates. This one we kind of touched on at the very end of last week's podcast. We knew that they were going to detail title update 1 for Monster Hunter Wilds and give us a date. And I messed up the name last time, I think. Mizutsune, the bubble beast that I first encountered in Rise, is coming in title update 1. The release date is April 4th. It's also including Arch-Tempered Raidou and the Grand Hub. I didn't watch this. Is the Grand Hub just the Gathering Hub, or is it different?
It's a gathering club, but it's all polished up. It's like its own place at Suja, and there's like different activities. You have arm wrestling on the barrel. They showed that they have like a new mini game, like a bowling mini game in it, and
Mhm.
it's all and it's everything kind of like all the important like facilities all in one, which is what people want along with like a social gathering. You can see other players in there, interact with them, eat together. So yeah, actually have like Meowster chefs, um,
Mm.
which was lacking in the base game. So and then like there's also a space like if you have seasonal events, they can like dress up this place to like according to the seasons. So like the spring is coming up, they'll have like a spring themed hub in it.
Mm.
As you said, Mizutsune, as they've previously mentioned, they're also finally like adding Zoshia, the final boss of low rank, into the game as a high rank Zoshia. So you can it was a one-off fight before, unless you were like joining signal flares to fight
Yeah.
it again. So now they actually have like a replayable fight in it, and actually has its own weapon and armor set, finally integrated into the game. They're adding back
And before it just had the Guardian set.
yeah, there's like a generic set that it dropped, like generic like mats and
Yeah.
stuff. So they also showed off Arc Tempered Raidou, and the way they phrased it as they're gonna add it as a limited event quest at first, and then they're gonna eventually update the game to make it more permanent, a more permanent edition. Based on how they phrased it, I'm not 10,000% sure how they're planning to integrate it, but anyway, Raidou is going to be like the first fight that is like the difficulty above our tempered as an arc tempered, and then
Mm.
obviously it'll have like its own like distinct like weapon and armor set as well to reflect its arc tempered status. Um, they're gonna have like arena quests, so like in the game you already have this arena, but it's kind of bare bones. For some quests in it, you can go hunt things in it as they appear in it, but it's very bare bones. Um, but now they're gonna have like arena quests, and they're actually gonna have like leaderboards as well, like that you can go through. And it's interesting where they have like two different leaderboards and quests for it. One which is like all pre-configured layouts, so it's like an even playing field where everyone has the same set and same configuration. So you're fighting for the top slot on like of everyone being on the same playing field. And then another quest type for arena where you can have your own set and gear, and you can like play with other people in it. I think it's up to 4 for the one that's more freeform, and then for the one that has pre-configured, it's you can have one additional with you. I believe that's how they structured it, which is interesting because in past titles you couldn't co-op these arena quests traditionally. So that's
The arena quests were things that I never really bothered with in the other games because they work so differently. Like the
yeah,
everything is on tickets, and usually there wasn't anything unique or worth getting. So it'd be interesting to see how they kind of over the lifetime of Wilds look at how the arena is integrated with the rest of the
yeah,
game.
yeah. Also, one of like the weird one of the weird features they advertised in this title update is a feature I guess no one was really thinking about, but they introduced is you can customize Alma, so she has like different outfits you can dress her up as.
Oh, I did see this, and they said like you can customize her glasses, but you can't take them off. It's like
I agree
that is
with that, by the way. Yeah,
yeah,
do
me
not
too.
take off the glasses. Thank you very much.
Wow, it's
So
crazy that Kamiya's been working with Capcom again for only a few months, and
yeah.
his influence is already
He's
being
so
made
right
known.
for this. Kamiya's so right. And for context, Kamiya has still got on record the Bayonetta's design, saying like, you can the glasses do not come off Bayonetta. That's one of the things that he was very adamant on. It's like, we will not take out Bayonetta's glasses. But you know what? He's so right for that. So yeah, you can go customize Alma with different outfits, starting with this title up as well. And yeah, I mean, it's cool. The getting content that probably should have been there at launch, but I get it. They're continually updating out over time. One of the big things they also let off was a teaser for the title update 2 coming summer, and they teased that Crest is coming back into the game at long last. Long requested. Laggy is back, baby.
We have War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is shutting down on May 29th. Usually, I guess we keep this to the very end. Not the very end here, but I just put it in date order. I feel like every other month we're talking about a Square Enix mobile project shutting down. As far as I can tell from this is the whole game. This isn't just the global
No,
version. This is the whole thing.
no. This is the Japanese the version, I believe, is still gonna keep on running at the
Oh, it
global.
is going to go. Okay, so this is the global.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
global version for War of the Visions, Brave X shutting down.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I didn't mean to give. If you're
Yeah,
playing the Japanese version, you're safe.
that's they're shutting down May 29th, and then as far as I know, there's been no mention of the Japanese version shutting down because that's still doing
Gotcha.
pretty well in Japan.
So I think that
Yeah.
leaves 2 Western Square Enix games, and it's really only one because it's Ever Crisis, and then there's Octopath, but that's now under NetEase. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's under NetEase. It's
so
like,
it still
man,
exists.
I
What about
wonder if
Missing
Square.
Link?
That's not out yet. That's not even
I know.
real
I mean,
yet.
I know.
I wonder if Square Enix have realized that their well-deserved reputation of shuttering mobile games has now made it impossible for them to release new mobile games yet.
I think maybe they're just like they're saying, hey, maybe like the global market for mobile titles is not feasible. We're just gonna axe everything and and just like kind of refocused our efforts elsewhere. Maybe there's just like a restructure, but part of the restructuring that they're doing, and they're trying to like reallocate these resources elsewhere. It's like this is not this endeavor is not worth it. We're leaking funds. We're kind of just burning money for nothing, and we should probably just stop this initiative and refocus our resources elsewhere. Which I get it. Yeah, I mean, there's a mass graveyard of Square Enix mobile titles. Well documented, I think. Other places, just it is interesting to see like what has the dynamic shift ever since Genshin released
Mhm.
years ago. What's been popular in the West now, what's profitable. Kind of Genshin was kind of pioneered this whole dynamic shift and popularized the gacha game market, but like in the more leaning in more in that direction. You can't have like more these like kind of more, I guess, old school Japanese style mobile games thrive. It has to be like kind of that buttered up dressed Genshin style, full 3D,
Mhm.
probably open world style game, and those are the ones that are really successful. Like Wuthering Waves, for example,
Mhm.
finding success.
Can't wait for the Square Enix Genshin clone.
Hey, you never know.
It'll be a near title.
God, man, that'd be cursed.
Maybe.
That'd be fucking cursed. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know what else they have in like if there's a Square Enix like currently in development aside from Missing Link, um, for the mobile space in that regard. I'm not exactly sure.
We have a launch date for the Eden Zero action RPG from Konami. It is going to be launching on July 15th. That's worldwide, both the West and the East.
Yeah, this kind of snuck up out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, Konami's like, hey, by the way, remember Eden Zero that we remembered existed a few months ago? Well, it's coming out now.
Well, I mean, the last couple of years of Konami have been like, remember video games? It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
Konami used to do that. So they're waking back up from a long sleep. So give them some give them some grace.
I don't know. Hopefully this is cool. I don't know if I have any faith in it, but hopefully it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say because I'm not really a fairy tale fan. I'm not really an Eden Zero fan.
Yeah,
And,
a lot of games in a similar vibe and a similar feel have not
and
done well, but it's hard to get.
Farmagia very much came and went, as in like no one
Yeah.
saw it come out, so no one bought it. And then even when people remembered it came out, it's like it seems like that just totally bombed. And I never heard anyone talk about anything about the anime adaptation. I don't
There
know.
was an anime adaptation?
Yes, there was a Farmagia anime adaptation that aired like last season, like the season before that. I forgot. Yep. So that came and went.
And then lastly here, I guess this is technically a delay announcement. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which has had a whole saga of development, changing
Stay the
developers and all
line,
that.
Brian. What's happening in this game?
It's delayed. Yay!
It's now releasing October 2025, which I didn't realize was a delay, but I guess it was already slated to be like mid 2025, but now it's October. So we're still not going to tell you a date, but it's later than the window we gave before, so it's a delay. So yeah, obviously this game has had a very troubled development. I will say though, to try to give it as much like to be as charitable as possible, it did have a few previews from some other outlets that went over to the new developer is the Chinese Room, and they're a British developer. Actually, remember, I believe, and like PC Gamer had a preview, and I'm sure other outlets too, but the one I read was PC Gamer, and they're actually relatively positive on it. So despite everything, maybe it has something there. I still don't like what I've seen from like the trailers. It seems very much more visual novel-esque, which I'm not saying is bad on its own, but just not when it has a 2 in the title, you kind of expect it to be a certain thing.
It looks more like those sorts of like mystery adventure games with some RPG stats now. So
Yeah, but the PC Gamer did really like the combat. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's actually good. We were misled. It's like maybe they actually salvaged something out of the turmoil of everything that's happened. But slated for October. We'll see if that holds or not. If
It would be
if
one
things
hell
are
of like
looking okay.
a story if like this came out and like it did like well above their expectations. Like it is like a hit. Like day one, like
Yeah.
everyone fucking loves it, and it's
remember when the
I'm sure
Paradox CEO was like, we should probably not do RPGs.
yeah,
He literally said that. Like, we probably shouldn't
yeah,
do this genre.
like that is not like something you want to hear. When you're developing this game, dude. Like what the fuck? So yeah. I guess we'll see in October if that date holds again.
And that's the last thing that I had listed for this episode of the Tetracast. Obviously, next week we got the big thing is Switch 2, and who else? That's a big question mark. We don't really know at all, like what's going to be shown, to what extent it's going to be shown, to what extent it'll be in our wheelhouse. But obviously, we'll cover it regardless of what they show. And
They're gonna show Xenoblade X2. It's gonna be the best shit ever. It's gonna be everything I ever
did talk.
wanted out of a video game. And it's gonna be at a silky smooth FPS with no FPS drops.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be the ultimate video game that I've ever wanted. That's what they're gonna be showing.
Well, we did talk about potentially like what could Monolith show there if they are going to make an appearance, which again we don't know. Uh, there's been rumors, of course, we don't know.
We should have everyone do one prediction. Like, what is a launched game? Something new.
I got my prediction out. Oh, okay. Xenoblade X2, everything I ever wanted out of a game edition. That's my prediction.
I would not bet money on that one.
What? Why? What?
I'm a little bit of a safe guess. I know there's been rumors for a long time for Fire Emblem 4 forever.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say Fire Emblem 4 will be there, but I'm gonna say Intelligent Systems will show something.
I mean, yeah, because it's been 2 years since Engage, right? And
Yeah, so they'll show something.
and even it's
is
been even
my
longer
prediction.
since I think Intelligent Systems basically has like 2 teams. They have the Fire Emblem team and then like the Paper Mario team. I guess I'm not sure if Intelligent Systems worked mostly on that remaster of the Thousand Years Door. Anyways, yeah, something Intelligent Systems. That's probably a decent guess.
Hey, that's my prediction. You have to have a
No,
different
no,
one.
I'm commenting on your guess. I think it's a decent
Oh, okay. What's your prediction?
Get off my guess.
I don't know if it's been like how many years since Mario Odyssey. Like feels like about time for a new 3D Mario.
Oh, you think
I feel like
you
that's like
think
the safest guess
flagship
ever,
No,
Mario?
but
I'll
it
do
is
a
a
safe
guess.
guess. Hey, you'll do the wild guess that has it's just pie in the sky. I'll do
Josh has
the.
enough wild guess for the rest of us.
I know we had Mario Wonder a couple years ago, but
Yeah, but they can Odyssey
Like,
too. Yeah,
Mario
yeah.
Wonder is weird because it feels like it came and went.
but it sold like 10 million.
Yeah, it came, sold 12 million, then went. It's like, oh, okay.
Mm. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I feel like Wonder definitely doesn't have like the legs in terms of like discussion as Odyssey games.
Probably a new Pikmin, I would guess, because like Miyamoto loves to
Loves Pikmin.
loves Pikmin, and Pikmin 4 sold really well, so he probably is going to stretch his muscles and be like more.
Okay, all right, yeah.
New Kirby.
Now with the power of the Switch
Yeah,
too.
Kirby makes sense. It
Kirby.
like it's been by the time the Switch 2 comes out, it will have been like over 3 years since Forgotten Land. So
I hope
probably
Forgotten Land gets a 60 FPS Switch 2 patch. That would
yeah,
really
we
benefit
know
that.
from emulators you can just uncap the frame rate and it works. So there's no reason why they couldn't do that. But yeah,
That'd be awesome. That game was awesome.
yeah, it's genuinely the best Kirby game as far as I'm concerned. So
Wow.
it's crazy how with that game it's like it's the first 3D Kirby game, but when you play it, and if you didn't know it was the first 3D Kirby, you'd be like, oh yeah, they've been making these for years.
Yeah.
And then in terms of games next week, I'm actually not sure. It's not like there's no big RPG headline game
I'm
for
gonna
like the first
be
week of April.
I might not even be on the podcast next week because I might still be busy raiding in 14, which I didn't even talk about the new 14 patch that came out this week. But
Yeah, so we'll see what people play like either in the backlogs or outside of the RPG space. I guess like I'm looking at like generic release calendars. Like I didn't realize Last of Us 2 is coming to PC
PC, yeah.
on April 3rd, so I didn't know that. Uh, so we'll just play it by ear and we'll see. And we have no idea like how much there will be to talk about from the Nintendo Direct. So uh, we'll see when we get there. Of course, all the reviews and the previews and that we talked about are up on the site, rpgsite.net. That includes the Khazan First Berserker review, the Atomfall review, and then James and Adam's various preview and opportunities coming out of GDC. We do have the guide for Saga Frontier 2. That's probably something I'll play before next week's podcast. Is get a little time in Saga Frontier 2. We have a guide on that on the site. You can, if you listen to this podcast on whatever podcast service of choice, leave us a like, leave us a rating, leave us a comment. We'd like to see those. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site, and you should be able to find us. Join the Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. And until you hear us next week on the Tetracast, stay safe, take care, and we'll speak to you all then.
It happens. Xenoblade X2, Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo Direct, 10,000% confirmed.